So we're good to go. Welcome, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. If we could take a roll call, please.
Councilmember Edwards.
Here.
Councilmember Higley.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly. Here. Vice Mayor Harrod.
Here.
Mayor Mitchell.
Here. And if you could all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Approve the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Report on closed session. We had a closed session. No action was taken. Announcements and presentations. We have a proclamation declaring August 26, 2025 as Women's Equality Day in the city of Healdsburg, and I'm going to go ahead and read that proclamation. Whereas on August 26, 2025, we mark the 105th anniversary of the enactment of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which secured the right to vote for women. And whereas in 1976, the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors established one of the first commissions on the status of women in the state of California with the purpose of promoting equal rights and opportunities that enhance the quality of life for all women and girls and addresses issues of discrimination and prejudice that negatively affect women in Sonoma County. And women constitute nearly 50% of our workforce, the majority of the students in our colleges and graduate schools, and an increasing number of primary breadwinners. And in 2024-25, Sonoma County women working full-time earned 86% of what men earned, and women working in agriculture and service areas, such as the majority of women workers in Sonoma Valley, earn even less. And even with the gains women have made, more work remains to be done in many areas that directly impact equal pay for equal work, including access to quality, affordable childcare, affordable housing, and comprehensive health care for women, including reproductive and mental health care. And the mandate for Women's Equality Day in 2025 is to, quote, accelerate efforts to eliminate systematic barriers and biases that impede women's progress, emphasizing the need for swift and decisive measures to achieve gender equality. And so now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Healdsburg hereby declares August 26, 2025 as Women's Equality Day in the City of Healdsburg. And we have Gina Fortino-Dixon here to receive the proclamation. You'd like to say a few words, please?
I always do.
Thank you.
I love saying a few words. And if you throw a microphone in front of there, all the better. Thank you, Mayor Mitchell, council members. I always appreciate that Healdsburg tends to be the first city to step forward and say, we're all in for women's equality. And it's not lost on me that we all just pledged allegiance to a country that stands for justice for all. Progress on women's rights, it's like a relay race. And here in California, some really extraordinary runners have carried that baton before us. Dolores Huerta, who organized farm workers and insisted that women lead the charge in the fight for justice. Dianne Feinstein broke barriers as San Francisco's first woman mayor and one of the longest serving women senators. Sally Ride, who's from Los Angeles, became the first American woman in space, showing girls everywhere that science and the stars were open to them. And Rita Moreno, a daughter of Puerto Rico, was raised in California, shattered barriers to the arts, proving that women of color could claim center stage. Each of these ran their lap with courage. They accelerated action. They did not wait to be invited, but took the opportunity as it presented itself. Our race isn't over. In fact, some rights once won are even being rolled back as we speak. Across the nation, women are facing attacks on reproductive freedom, threats to healthcare access, and persistent gender pay gaps. Challenges that affect Californians and women across the nation and the world. Now the baton, it's in our hands. And in the relay, every second matters. We cannot slow down. Accelerated action means defending reproductive rights, protecting women from violence, closing wage gaps, and ensuring women and girls have equal opportunity in every field, from politics to tech to the arts. The finish line is clear in California and the world. It's a world where women and men run side by side with an equal chance to win. So let us run this leg with urgency and determination so that when we pass the baton, it will be further ahead than we were. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Can you stick around for the next proclamation? We'll get a picture with the council.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And next up, we have a proclamation celebrating the life and contributions of Aaron Rosewater. Vice Mayor Herod.
Thank you very much. A proclamation of the City Council of the City of Healdsburg celebrating the life and contributions of Aaron Rosewater. Whereas Aaron Rosewater has been a cherished member of the Healdsburg community for many years, dedicating his passion and energy to enriching the lives of its residents. And whereas, as the co-owner of Levin and Company Bookstore, Aaron helped to cultivate a vital community space where neighbors and visitors could gather, share ideas, and connect over a shared love of literature. And whereas, through his tireless work, Aaron not only provided a curated selection of books, but also hosted countless author events, book clubs, and readings, establishing the bookstore as a cultural cornerstone of downtown Healdsburg. And whereas Aaron's commitment extended beyond the walls of his business as he consistently supported local schools, charitable organizations, and community events, always with a welcoming smile and generous spirit. And whereas his presence has had a lasting and positive impact on our city, fostering a sense of warmth, intellectual curiosity, and community pride. Now therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of Healdsburg hereby recognizes and honors Aaron Rosewater for his remarkable service to the Healdsburg community and expresses its deep gratitude for his lasting contributions to the cultural and literary life of our city. And we have Aaron's son, Emil, here to receive the proclamation.
Hi, hello. I don't have remarks prepared or anything, but I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of my dad, and also that you know, he really did create a space where so many people felt comfortable and welcome and seen. And our intention is to keep the bookstore running. His shoes are big. It's going to be a hard act to follow, but I think between myself, my grandmother Adele, and my fiance Natalia, you know, maybe we can, with our combined brain power, you know, try and do maybe a fourth of what he did. Yeah, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Would you come up and have a picture with the council? Is that you and your
Absolutely.
fiance, Natalia?
Seems like we're really close.
I know, let me back it up. Okay, hang on a second, wait. Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for that. Next up is our city manager reports. City Manager Kay.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of updates for you all this evening. First off, I wanted to update, I made a report 2 weeks ago at our last meeting that we had a strike team, 3 members of our fire department who had left town to go up to Lake County to work on a wildfire there. And I think I told you at this point 2 Mondays ago that they were on their way back home safely. Well, they were safe, but that proved to be bad information in that they were redirected en route back to Healdsburg and actually ended up working on a fire, the Gifford Fire in San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara County, and ended up doing a pretty healthy tour there of 14 days. So I think I'm accurate this time, though looking for the chief, they are back now, back safe and all equipment's in good shape, but turned out to be a pretty hefty, more than a couple of weeks of service. So we're proud of the work they did. I want to offer thanks. I think it was Captain Mac Montagna, Engineer Justin Potter, Firefighter Dean De La Montagna, all served. So big thanks to them, and obviously thanks to everybody at the fire department who made sure that we were fully staffed for the last couple of weeks. One reminder, the council knows this, but a reminder for everybody, we do send out strike teams when staffing allows. We don't do so in a way that compromises staffing here at home. So it's never quite that easy. It often involves shuffling schedules around and everybody needs to work with us. But just so everybody's aware, we do ensure that we are fully staffed here at our station. But pleased to share at this point that everybody is back home safely. So that's one important update. A couple of other things. I was fortunate to be able to sit in on a meeting last week, I think, with our community services department in planning and design for the Laura Fish Summersall Park up adjacent to the Saggio Hills development. Had been doing some outreach to the family of Laura Fish Summersall to learn a little bit more about her and start thinking about ways that we can honor her in the design and development of that park. And we're able to put together a meeting with a couple of family members. And I was fortunate enough, as was the mayor, to be able to sit in and listen. I won't try to repeat everything we heard, except to say it was a really neat opportunity to hear from people who knew her directly and just share stories. Some of them, big picture, impactful stuff about her legacy as a linguist, a basket weaver. And some of it was just fun family stories about the quirks of one person and what it was like to be around them. But all of that was a really great experience. It was part of what I know is a long journey for us all, and just trying to better connect with, understand, and appreciate the tribes that were and have been here. The takeaway, I know, is that our team will continue to be creative as they always are, and really lean in. I see our community services staff really leaning into this and just trying to understand, and we don't know what that will be yet, but how we can have a park that's not just named after Laura Fish Summersall, but also find some ways to really reflect her legacy. So it remains to be seen what that is, but I just wanted to share with the council that was happening and was really encouraging. 2 other real quick updates. Tomorrow is the second to last of our Tuesday concerts, so can't believe it, but summer is sort of winding down. So I encourage anybody who wants to get out there and enjoy it. The weather looks good for tomorrow, looks good really for the next couple of weeks. So get out there while you can. We have 2 more concerts. And then lastly, a really small thing that I think worth noticing is tonight we have a couple of modest, but I think exciting little aesthetic improvements to our council chambers here. So council in front of you, got a nice new 3D city seal, which should just customize our room a little bit and add some spark, and another one on the podium. This is part of what we're trying to do, is just pick off a handful of things, all small improvements to help make this room function a little bit better. We've gotten some really great suggestions from you, the council. So just for instance, you don't hear us saying to everybody who gets up at the podium, can you push the button, please? We've got that on a remote sensor. So, and I think we've got that working pretty well. We're not in a position probably to make a massive overhaul to our AV system at this time, but there are always things we can do to just get a little bit better. And so I just wanted to share, these are things that I'm sure most people won't notice, but really the credit goes to Raina Allen, our city clerk, who's implemented these and some other kind of behind the scenes tech improvements in this room. So we'll just keep trying to make sure everything runs smoothly in here. So I hope you enjoy from your vantage point. The council can't see the bigger seal, but take my word for it. It's there and it looks good. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And I noticed it right away. So yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you very much for that, Raina. Does anybody have questions for the city manager? No? Okay. So oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm so delighted to hear that you guys met with the family of Laura Fish Summersall and folks from the community. And I think when we made the decision to name the park, I knew obviously it was a very intense meeting filled with a lot of emotion, but I don't really think the gravity of that decision really was, I did not understand the gravity of that decision, because we kind of make decisions in isolation, looking at our parks or our public resources, and we don't know what other cities in Sonoma County or in the region have done. And then it turned out that decision was one where we were the first city to do something, to name a park or a public space after a Native American and a Native American woman. And I think and now really not just naming it and putting a name on it and saying, job done, here's the sign, but actually creating like meaning in that and really using it as an opportunity to deepen our relationship with our Indigenous community. I just think it's something we should, and our community should feel is really important, and something we should be proud of for, the history and not so positive history of what's happened in our community in relationship to our Native American community. I think we're taking some really big strides, and I just want to thank the mayor and city manager and folks who are able to pull that meeting together and continue those important, dialogues, because I think that's really a pathway towards healing that so many are really looking for, especially at a time of great division in our country. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And it was a great meeting, and the people were amazing and shared some really nice personal stories that are inspiring. So I know that'll keep going. Director Themig is working on that, I know, as we speak, probably. So moving on, we've got public comment on items on the consent calendar and non-agenda items. So this time is set aside to receive comments from the public regarding matters of general interest not on the agenda but related to City Council business. Pursuant to the Brown Act, however, the City Council cannot consider any issues or take action on any requests during this comment period. Do we have anyone who wishes to make public comment at this point? Come forward to the podium, please. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to read my things. I'm nervous. My name is Jacqueline Eds-Consul. I've been living and working and parenting in Healdsburg for the past 2 years. We live in an extraordinary city and region, as you all know, and I'm proud to contribute to this community and call Healdsburg home. The last time I was in this room, I was accompanying my daughter and her classmates who were sharing with you all about the support and encouragement they were sending to children across the country in Tennessee who had suffered the loss of their school and homes due to Hurricane Helene. I'm proud to be raising a child who has compassion for others, people she doesn't know and who live far away. And I'm proud of her classmates and her teacher and school who are teaching the youth of Healdsburg to care about more than just themselves, to care about their impact on the world around them, both near and far. What brings me back to this room today is learning over the last several months about a business operating in our city that is having a destructive impact on the world, destroying schools and hospitals and universities and libraries and killing children and mothers and elders and fathers and entire families in Gaza, Palestine. And just like we are concerned about the lives of students and teachers and families in Tennessee, we're also concerned about the lives of students and families in Palestine that are being systematically destroyed by an export from this city of missiles, artillery, and surveillance technology that are made for the sole purpose of destroying life. I know that this council cares about a lot of the same things that I care about and that we have a lot of shared values. And I know this town cares about its reputation for being a place of abundance and thriving, for good food and exceptional wine, and for offering hospitality to the people who visit us from all around the world. I know that we take pride in all that we grow and create and share with the world. I also know there are guidelines and expectations for businesses operating within these city limits and representing our community. General Dynamics has been permitted to do business in Healdsburg, to operate and profit from the genocide of the Palestinian people. Over 63,000 civilians murdered by the Israeli army since October 2023. And I wonder how many of those innocent lives were taken by bombs manufactured, at least in part, right here in Healdsburg. I am asking you, council members, to join me in being the role models that our children and community deserve. Evict General Dynamics on the grounds of participating in human rights violations, war crimes, and genocide. Keep our kids and community safe by getting rid of General Dynamics and drawing a line at genocide. If we can't draw the line there, then none of us are safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Please just come up to the podium. Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Chris Kennedy. I'm a new resident of Healdsburg. And I have also been learning since I've gotten here about the General Dynamics facility in our backyard here in Healdsburg. And I was horrified to learn about it as I was joining this community and connecting with all of the great things and people about in the community of Healdsburg. But it's horrifying to know that in our town, there's a factory that is building parts for the bombs that are being dropped on women, children, babies, journalists, doctors, aid workers, tearing families apart and leveling the entirety of Gaza, burying it in rubble, a population that's already being forcibly starved and deprived of food and water and medicine. And I want to know if General Dynamics is being given a tax break or any kind of assistance from our municipal government. And even if it's not, I want to see our local leadership take more of a stand on this issue. Maybe there has been some action taken in the past, but I haven't heard anything about it. And if there hasn't been, I'm curious to know why that's the case. If anything has been done at all about one of the most significant cases of genocide in the 21st century, one that is being backed and funded and carried out by the US government and profited off of by people in our own town, including General Dynamics and including potentially our local government if Healdsburg is invested in this war. And some might say this is not a local issue, but other city councils across the country have made resolutions in support of a ceasefire and resolutions to divest from the genocide. So I'm wondering what's stopping this city council from doing the same. I think now is the time for courage and moral leadership, and I look forward to hearing about your plans to take a stand on this issue. And in the meantime, other concerned residents and I will continue to raise public consciousness about the General Dynamics facility here and the potential for our community to take action. Free Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi there. My name is Michael Tatone. I have been coming out to Healdsburg every weekend to help raise awareness about General Dynamics and what they profit off of in the community. General Dynamics, as a company, makes the 2,000-pound bombs that are being dropped on Gaza. They also make significant apparatus for immigrant surveillance. So, I've been part of groups that have come to other city councils, and we often get rebuffed and told that, these are not local issues, but these are local issues. This is happening in our community. And I'm constantly I'm constantly reminded that our values are not just our words or our feelings about an issue. Our values is where is our money? Where is our economy? What are we doing? How are we making our livelihoods and our money? I was looking at some of Healdsburg's investment reports, and this one's from April 2025. There's investments in Lockheed Martin, which is a company very, very similar to General Dynamics. They profit both from the genocide that's currently happening in Gaza, and they profit from immigrant surveillance. Does Healdsburg have social environmental considerations for what its investments are in? These companies are not benefiting the world. These companies are destroying immigrant lives. They're profiting significantly from the misery of immigrants and from people at large. And they're also lobbying our government to continue some of the policies that are harming people in our community and people around the world. So I think it's really important that we take a stand with all of our power, whether it's our finances, whether it's the power to affect the profiteering off of genocide and off of the destruction of immigrant lives that's happening in our own communities. It's important to use that power and to not claim, oh, there's nothing we can do. There are always things that people can do. We're going to keep doing what we are able to do, using the power that we have. And I'd love to see this council and really everybody in the world and in the community step up right now. This is a critical time. An entire population of folks in Gaza are being starved to death. And if we're not going to do anything about it, then history is not going to remember us well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Welcome.
I was not going to speak tonight. I had no idea those speakers were going to be here. And the man who just spoke was in my public speaking class. Hi, Michael. Wow. Yeah, obviously this is valuable time. We have all these people being paid tax dollars to come to a meeting, but I really want to just echo the concern. I've seen these protesters out at the farmers market, and I really am concerned that we don't miss the message of these articulate speakers. I had no idea they were even going to be here tonight. I came here to hear about Aaron Rosewater, who I attended his memorial service yesterday. And thank you, Vice Mayor, for speaking and getting that resolution. But, you know, as valuable as that little number is that's going off, they have a right. And this is where we're going, y'all. We're going to local concerns. We're going, this is the only place we have. So I know this city council will see us, and I know they're going to see these speakers and understand that as we progress under the current administration, and we continue to see war as an answer, you're going to keep seeing articulate, beautiful people come and wake us up. And I'm touched by the speakers, and I'm really grateful for you all to hold such space for them. Because as Aaron's son, Emil just said, the reason we love Lebanon Company is because we could go in there and feel seen. And I just want to make sure you know I appreciate you listening to me right now. I wasn't going to speak, but that was really powerful. And I know you only have so much capacity and you only have so much control. City attorney will tell you there's nothing we can do, and we're going to continue to invest in war and killing. Some of you know because you've been confronted on different personal issues on where your investments are, but my investment is always going to be to speak truth to power. So I'm grateful for those speakers. Thank you so much for coming to our chambers. You honor us by being here. Thank you, Mayor, for letting me speak.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Welcome.
Good evening. I also had no intention of standing up tonight, but I am inspired, and I've been doing the Thursday vigil off and on for a long time down at the plaza, and I have a sign that was not exactly received when I first took it, and it said, "Gaza is our moral compass." And I thought about it throughout the week, how I sort of caved and turned the sign around and said something like, "Together we're stronger," which is true also. And so I went back the next week and I had changed the sign to say Gaza is my moral compass because I need to own that. And recently I've thought, yeah, and I'm kind of failing that, I'm just one person. But I felt the courage having these articulate people stand up and talk about what our values are for now and for the legacy of the future, the children that are going to grow up here and look back and say, those people, they stood up, they spoke up, they had the courage, and we're here because of them. We survived. So thanks for listening. I know it's difficult. Bye.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing anyone come forward. I'll go ahead and close public comment and we'll move on to the consent calendar.
I move we approve this consent calendar.
Second?
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Edwards?
Yes.
Councilmember Higley?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harrod?
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell?
Yes. Thank you. Let's see. Okay, so now we move on to item 7, public hearings, update to the 2022 California Building Code amendments. Planning and Building Director Scott Dylan.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm filling in for David Willoughby, the building official who presented the first part of this action to you back on August 4th. That's when you introduced an ordinance amending the Healdsburg Municipal Code to include local amendments to the 2022 California Building Standards Code and to set a public hearing for adoption of that ordinance this evening. Next slide. The recommended action tonight is that the City Council pass an ordinance amending Chapter 15.04 of the Healdsburg Municipal Code and adopt by reference Part 11 of the California Green Building Standards Code of the 2022 California Building Standards Code Title 24 and the 2021 International Property Maintenance Code in its entirety, and making local amendments to the 2022 California Building Code, the 2022 California Residential Code, the 2022 Green Building Code, and the 2021 International Property Maintenance Code. Next slide. As you may recall, the reason that we're here is that Assembly Bill 130 was signed by the governor and became effective on June 30th of 2025. AB 130 mandates that the new 2025 California Building Standards Code Title 24, adopted by the state and effective January 1st, 2026, will remain in effect for 6 years instead of the typical 3-year cycle. AB 130 limits local amendments affecting residential projects to only those that are filed with the California Building Standards Commission and in effect by September 30th, 2025. The goal of this is to provide some certainty statewide in housing construction in response to the fires in Southern California. Next slide. The purpose of this ordinance is to address some needed corrections and updates to Healdsburg's local amendments. This ordinance will make these changes to the Healdsburg Municipal Code, which will be in effect for the next 6 years. And staff will also be returning to the City Council in November to adopt the actual 2025 California Building Standards Code. Next slide. The proposed changes reinstate the California Green Building Standards Code, Title 24, Part 11, the 2022 edition, and reletters the remaining provisions. It includes a processing fee for appeals of $619.16 to be adjusted yearly with the city's fee schedule. It amends the California Residential Code to include a processing fee for appeals of $619.16 adjusted annually, and increases the number of required drowning prevention safety measures from 1 to 2. It also amends the California Building Standards Code, clarifying that a newly constructed building or new construction is defined as it is in our Healdsburg Municipal Code in section 1504.020. And lastly, that it amends the International Property Maintenance Code to replace the appeal language to be consistent throughout Chapter 15 of the Healdsburg Municipal Code. Next slide. Again, the recommendation action this evening is to conduct a public hearing and pass an ordinance amending Chapter 1504 of the Healdsburg Municipal Code as described at the beginning of this presentation. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Does anybody have questions? No? So we'll open up the public hearing at this point. Anybody like to get up and speak about this issue? Not seeing anybody rush up to the podium, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Go ahead.
Please.
I move that we pass an ordinance amending Chapter 1504 of the Healdsburg Municipal Code and adopt by reference Part 11 California Green Building Standards Code CGBSC of the 2022 California Building Standards Code Title 24 and the 2021 International Property Maintenance Code in its entirety, and making local amendments to the 2022 California Building Code, the 2022 California Residential Code, the 2022 Green Building Code, and the 2021 International Property Maintenance Code.
Second?
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Edwards?
Yes.
Councilmember Hagley?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harrod?
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell?
Yes. Thank you. So
Thank you.
you did that last time too, right?
I think I screwed it up last time.
Okay, so on to old business. 8A, Eel Russian Project Authority and new Eel Russian Facility. Patrick Fuse, Interim Utilities Director.
Good evening, Mayor Mitchell, members of council. Patrick Foose, Acting Utility Director, and I'm joined tonight by David Manning. He's the Executive Director for the Eel Russian Project Authority and the Division Manager for Environmental Resources for Sonoma Water. Next slide, please. The recommended action tonight is to adopt a resolution in support of the Eel Russian Project Authority and the new Eel Russian facility. And I'll give you a little bit of background on these topics and how they pertain to the city of Healdsburg, and then turn it over to David to finish it off. So the city of Healdsburg derives its water from surface water rights. We have a number of rights through 2 diversions on the Russian River and one on Dry Creek. The Russian River water rights constitutes 80% of our water rights, and for Dry Creek is 20%. Additional water is available for the city for purchase from Sonoma Water when the city's water rights are not available. Next slide, please. So upstream of the city's Russian River diversions is Lake Mendocino. And for decades, Lake Mendocino has received flow from the Eel River system through the Potter Valley Project, a PG&E hydro generation operation. PG&E has found that the Potter Valley Project no longer is viable for economic circumstances and has ceased power generation in 2021 and has submitted a license surrender application this year. So changes are afoot. Next slide, please. With these changes at the Potter Valley Project, water will no longer be diverted from the Eel River system to the Russian River system as it once was. This impacts thousands and thousands of farmers, water purveyors, and residents that depend on the Russian River. Next slide, please. Sonoma Water, Sonoma County, Mendocino County, and others have collaborated for years to develop a solution to address this issue. And David Manning, sitting next to me, is the Division Manager for Environmental Resources for Sonoma Water, is here to tell us about the Eel Russian Project Authority and the proposed new Eel Russian facility. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Patrick. Madam Mayor, members of the council, as Patrick mentioned, I am the Executive Director of the Eel Russian Project Authority. I'll describe what that is in a little bit of detail here, and I'll give a little background as well. I'll try to move through that material a little more quickly, and we'll get to how this new Eel Russian facility functions, the water diversion agreement that we reached with stakeholders in both the Eel and the Russian River watershed to implement this plan, what it costs, and some steps to step through the planning and design process over the next several years. So next slide, please. And there are animated bullets, so I'll ask for a couple of those to be put up. Thank you. So the project has been diverting water year-round, as Patrick mentioned, since 1908. The big change, of course, is that hydropower generation was the focus of the project. That has changed now to water supply, and I'll describe that in a bit more detail. The project has a negative effect on salmon, steelhead, river migrating fish in the Eel River system because one of the project dams blocks access to historic spawning grounds. Next bullet, please. While there have been negative consequences to the Eel River, there have also been benefits in that diverted water to the Russian River by, as Patrick mentioned, supporting our agricultural community, municipalities, and the environment for more than 100 years. Also, as Patrick mentioned, PG&E has decided that it is no longer economically feasible for them to hold that license. And just recently, actually on the 25th of July, PG&E submitted to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission a license surrender application to formalize their separation from the project and its facilities. Next slide, please. What I will be describing is the Russian River reaction to that surrender and decommissioning plan. So let's step through the next couple of bullets. Oh, actually, yep, we'll go forward. And the next one. So a lot of folks are probably familiar with what these facilities look like. Farthest upstream is Scott Dam, which impounds Lake Pillsbury. It was built in 1922. The first dam and reservoir that was constructed as a part of the project in 1908 is about 12 miles downstream. That's Cape Horton Dam. It creates Van Arsdale Reservoir. And of course, downstream of that is Coyote Valley Dam and Lake Mendocino, built in the late 1950s. That's really the beginning of the system that we rely on here in the Russian River, but it's incredibly linked to this historic project on the Eel. In fact, the way that water years have been designated in the Russian River watershed historically have been based on the amount of water that flows into Lake Pillsbury. The size of Lake Mendocino was constructed with the knowledge of historic diversion and how much volume was sent between the two watersheds over time. This picture of Lake Mendocino is in the depth of the droughts in drought in 2014. Next slide, please. So this figure depicts the change in that diversion between the Eel and the Russian River on average over time. From 1922 to 2005, some 150,000 acre feet on average was diverted by PG&E through the tunnel that divides the two watersheds. That is a tremendous volume of water. That volume was cut in more than half after environmental regulations, particularly the Endangered Species Act, brought changes to the operations of the project in 2007. And you can see in that 2007 to 2020 timeframe, 60,000 acre feet was transferred through the project. More recently, due to the effects of drought, some equipment failures, and some seismic safety concerns at Scott Dam, the volume of water has been further reduced to around 40,000 acre feet per year. And that's had a pretty profound effect on our ability to manage the storage in Lake Mendocino. Lake Mendocino is not a large reservoir. It's vulnerable to changes in inflow, and its reliability is affected tremendously by drought. We rely on these diversions to help maintain the reliability in the Russian River system that we all depend on. Next slide, please. So in response to this impending surrender and decommissioning process, stakeholders in both the Eel and the Russian River watershed came together to achieve two goals, and we call this partnership the two-basin solution. One is to improve fish habitat and access to spawning grounds in the Eel River. The other is to maintain a diversion between the Eel and the Russian River. And the partners that came together to strike what I'll describe as a pretty historic water diversion agreement included Sonoma Water, Humboldt County, the Round Valley Indian Tribes, California Trout, a nonprofit organization, a conservation organization, Trout Unlimited, similarly a conservation organization, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and the Mendocino County Inland Water and Power Commission. It's a long title. They are a JPA of water users and interests in Mendocino County. Next slide, please. So an outgrowth of that two-basin partnership is the organization that I now represent, the Eel Russian Project Authority, a joint powers authority between Sonoma Water, Sonoma County, Mendocino County IWPC, and the Round Valley Indian Tribes, serves as a member of the board. Our entire purpose is to construct, operate, maintain this diversion, to negotiate with interests in the Eel River and PG&E to bring this project to fruition and continue the reliability that we enjoy here in the Russian River system. Next slide, please. So these next series of renderings depict, in this case, the existing setting at Cape Horn Dam, and I'll show you in just a moment what the new project facilities will look like. The feature to pay attention to here in this image is in the upper left-hand side of the image. That's the entrance to the diversion tunnel. So this dam, Cape Horn Dam, again constructed in the early portion of the last century to really allow gravity to feed that diversion that runs a mile between the Eel and the Russian River. Next slide, please. So our proposed new Eel Russian facility, or the NERF as it's been dubbed, would be constructed after PG&E removes Cape Horn Dam and Scott Dam. And so instead of gravity feeding this diversion between the Eel and the Russian River, we would construct a pump station. That pump station would have screens that prevent fish from being entrained. The pumps lift the water about 30 or 40 feet to the entrance of the tunnel, where it then flows via gravity down into the Russian River system. Next slide, please. This perspective of the same rendering is looking from downstream to upstream. You can see that big face of the dam and tens of feet of passage barrier, partial passage barrier to fish has been removed. So there is no longer at the site of Cape Horn Dam any impediment to salmon migrating upstream as adults or downstream as juveniles or native fish passing through that section of the river. There's a fish ladder that's shown on the right-hand side of the image that would be filled, removed. That is no longer necessary. Fish have complete access to the site. There's a retaining wall that protects the conduit that would carry this water that is pumped up to the tunnel entrance. Next slide, please. So how does the diversion function? This has been very interesting to members of both the Eel River and Russian River communities. On the Eel River side, folks concerned that continued diversion might have a negative effect on the ecosystem in the Eel River. On the Russian River side, that the rules that govern the diversion provide enough water to have reliability in Lake Mendocino. So I'll take just a moment to describe how those rules function. So in each season, fall, winter, spring, summer, really depending on the life cycle of fish that are present at that site in Cape Horn Dam on the Eel River at that time, there are limits to when pumping can occur. There's something called a floor, a flow below which water cannot be diverted to the Russian River, and that changes seasonally. It's relatively high in the winter and spring, and then it's lower in the spring and the summer as the flows, absent the presence of Scott Dam and Lake Pillsbury, are naturally lower during that season. The percentage of water that can be diverted is also set each season in a way that protects the natural hydrograph, the way that the water rises and falls naturally in the Eel River watershed, and that diversion limit is between 20 and 30%. There's also a maximum amount of water, just the physical dimensions of the tunnel, that is a constraint on the system, and that constraint is 300 cubic feet per second. So there's based on the ecology of the Eel River, there's a minimum flow that remains in the river, and there's a percentage of the flow that can be taken so that fish and ecosystem functions can continue while there is water being diverted into the Russian River system. Next slide, please. So this is the same image I showed you earlier, except there's an additional bar on the far right-hand side, and that shows what we project, and this is based on some pretty sophisticated hydrologic modeling, would be the contribution, given those diversion rules, that the Eel River would make to the Russian River system, to Lake Mendocino, and that diversion amount on average is about 30,000 acre feet per year. The rules actually allow more water to be diverted than that 30,000 acre feet. There is a constraint, and that constraint is the storage capacity in Lake Mendocino. Lake Mendocino has to serve both water supply and flood control functions. We manage it jointly with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Sonoma Water managing releases in the summertime, the water supply season. The Army Corps of Engineers managing the flood pool in the reservoir. When water would be diverted during times where there's a lot of water in the Russian River system, that water would simply be released as flood control water. So the facility would not function when the water cannot be diverted into storage, which is why there's this difference between what the rules allow and what can actually be stored. The next slide, please. And that's what's depicted on this slide. So we're still showing acre feet on this slide, but what we're showing is how much water remains in Lake Mendocino at the transition from one water year to another. Think about it as the end of one water year and the beginning of another, September 30th. On the far left-hand side, currently, that storage on average is about 57,000 acre feet. With the project, there's a reduction to about 51,000 acre feet in the absence of the diversion. So if there was no new Eel Russian facility, no Eel Russian project authority, that average amount of storage at the end of the water year would be 25,000 acre feet in Lake Mendocino, and that's an average. So there are some years where no water would be available to be released, and it could not support the uses of water in the upper Russian River as the lake currently does. Next slide, please. So, yep, we can show the first couple of bullets. So the water diversion agreement that I referenced, we entered into this agreement with those parties that I showed on the previous slide as the two basin partners. All of those parties, including the state of California, the Eel Russian Project Authority Board, the Board of Supervisors for Sonoma County and Sonoma County Water Agency, entered into this agreement on July 28th. It supports the application that PG&E has made to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to construct the new Eel Russian facility at the same time they're removing Cape Horn Dam. That's a really important feature. The new Eel Russian facility is a part of the application that PG&E made to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to allow the Eel Russian Project Authority to build that project at the same time PG&E is removing the dam. And there are some just regulatory steps required there. This application needs to include this project. PG&E has been working with us cooperatively. The water rights that govern the project, this is a big change. They would move from PG&E to the Round Valley Indian tribes. Any water that was not needed for the diversion would be dedicated to in-stream flow in the Eel River to support the conservation of fish and the ecosystem in the Eel River. The Eel Russian Project Authority would lease those water rights from the Round Valley Indian tribes as soon as the project began operating. There's a payment of $1 million a year for those water rights. There's also a payment of $750,000 a year to a conservation fund to support continued restoration in the Eel River. Those operations of the new Russian facility would not be under federal jurisdiction. They would be under state and more local control, so it's not part of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission's jurisdiction. There are rules and metrics and adaptive management that have to be adhered to in order for the diversion to continue. And there's a term. So there's an initial term of 30 years and a renewal term of 20 years if money is raised for this Eel River Restoration Fund. Russian River water users increase the resiliency over this 30-year and potentially 50-year time frame of the diversion. And we comply with all of the rules and demonstrate that we're not having a negative effect on the Eel River's ecosystem. Next bullet, please. There's also a shared fundraising goal that is not a requirement for renewal, but both interests in both basins are to support the development and the continued operation of this new Eel Russian facility and the restoration in the Eel River. And this agreement is legally enforceable. There are all kinds of provisions for disputes and how they might be resolved, enforcement provisions, and very importantly, the Round Valley Indian tribes waived the right to sovereign immunity, so that if there are disagreements, they can be litigated. Next slide, please. So everybody wants to know what this project is going to cost, and I can tell you, and we can continue with the bullets, please. We have a sense of what the preliminary costs are going to be for capital. for operations and maintenance. We do not yet know how that translates into what water users will pay. That is the next portion of our work. So the design and permitting phase that we're in now, perhaps $5 million. The construction cost estimate based on about a 30% level of engineering design is $50 million. Operations and maintenance, that $7 to $12 million annual amount varies. And it varies depending largely on how much bonding would be required to construct the project. We are pursuing grants from the state and the federal government. In fact, we have right now, we're working off a $2 million grant from the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation for the design portion of the project. The state has committed a total of $18 million to this effort. We're meeting with them tomorrow about this. We met with them last week. Half of that $18 million is to go toward the new Eel Russian facility. The other half, $9 million, is for this Eel River restoration effort. And we have other monies that we've applied for, and actually some funds that we've been awarded that have yet to be dispersed by the federal government pending some of the review processes that they have put in place in the past few months. Next slide, please. So some next steps in a potential schedule, and I promise I'm getting close to the end of our presentation here. A couple of milestones we've already reached at the end of July, and then potential schedule. There's nothing that statutorily requires the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to meet a particular schedule. So there is some vagary, but some of the activities that will likely happen in the next few years include development of a business plan and the sort of financial model to operate the Eel Russian Project Authority, more design work, California Environmental Quality Act compliance, both for the new Eel Russian facility and for PG&E's decommissioning of the project. Likewise, the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA compliance for both features of the project. So the environmental compliance tasks are more or less divided between PG&E and its surrender and decommissioning process and the new Eel Russian facility for the construction, operations, and maintenance of that project. In the 2028 to 2030 timeframe, perhaps PG&E receives an order from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission that will describe how they are to conduct this decommissioning. After that order, there's yet more permitting and design work that's likely. So perhaps in the 2030 to 2035 timeframe, there could be simultaneous dam removal and construction of the new Eel Russian facility. And I fully expect I will be back before you, updating you about the progress of this project, and this timeline very well may change. Next slide, please. So one of the ways we get questions often about how the public can participate and comment on this process. We are about to launch the CEQA process for the new Eel Russian facility. We expect that will take about 24 months. There is lots of public comment and interaction as a part of the development of that process. Next slide, please. We also have a website that's been established for the Eel Russian Project Authority. You can see the address there. It provides some in-depth information about some of the reports that I mentioned, some of the information about the two-basin solution, how we got to this point. Next slide, please. And it includes some basic fact sheets about how the project will function. Much of the information I covered today, I brought a couple of examples of those sheets in the table as folks enter the chambers here, if they would like to take that information home with them, and you can download these easily from our website. Next slide, please. I think with that, I would be happy to entertain any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that report. Appreciate it. Councilmember Hagley had a question, and then we'll go to Ron.
Real quick, there were a lot of big numbers that were thrown around. What do you have a sense for Healdsburg on what our contribution would be on a pro rata basis, on an annual, as well as the initial construction phase?
The short answer
and the follow-up is that more than what we're paying now? Is it less? Just context.
I'll take the second part first. It will be more than you are paying now. Water users will have to pay for this reliability. It is new. The cost of this water, we have been receiving it as a byproduct of PG&E's hydroelectric operation. Now we're actively pumping this water, and there are costs to pay for the water rights and the conservation fund and operate this new entity. So yes, the costs for all water users will be additive to what you're paying now. We do not know how that plays out by each user group. And we're hoping, our hope is to distribute the cost of this project among as many users as possible. More to come on that. We are right now working with a consultant to help describe the steps to arrive at the monetization of those annual O&M costs. So I don't have an answer for you today, but we will.
And then a follow-up, what is the $1 million to the Round Valley Tribe? What does that go toward? Like, is that just a fee that they're charging? Where did that number come from?
That is a fee that we agreed to pay, that was negotiated amongst all of the parties. One way to look at it, the Round Valley Indian Tribes has a very strong claim that they have rights to the water in the Eel River, and they can make that claim under something called the Winters Doctrine. And to avoid their asserting that claim, we've agreed to lease those water rights, grant them to them from PG&E, either via the Eel Russian Project Authority or directly in agreement between PG&E and the Round Valley Indian Tribes, and lease that water back. So it is paying to forego a legal battle over the rights to that water after PG&E steps away from the project. And it was also a main deal point for the state of California. They made it very clear that they're offering financial contribution and participation in this project, which is critical because the state is a primary permitting agency for this future work. They felt very strongly that Round Valley Indian Tribe should hold these rights, and Russian River interests should lease those rights back from them.
Councilmember Edwards.
Yeah, I went back and looked at this, and it looks like the last time this council talked about this briefly was in 2021. And I think a lot of people aren't familiar with the project. We're hearing a lot about it now that it's here, but this started back in 2018, 2019 that they started. And am I correct in saying that the problem was a seismic maintenance of these two dam projects? Is that correct, that the maintenance cost to keep them going forward?
So the most recent finding of some of the seismic concerns actually occurred after PG&E had made the decision to no longer pursue the project for its economic viability, really what it cost them to operate and maintain the project versus the revenue they were generating from the hydropower. It's a relatively small project. It was uneconomical for them before some of these seismic safety concerns came to the fore. I think they added most likely to PG&E's desire to divest themselves of the project. They've also had some maintenance failures. The transformer bank at the powerhouse failed, and fixing that equipment's expensive. PG&E saw the future that they were no longer wanting to generate power at this facility, so they elected not to fix that. So I think there's a variety, the age of the facilities, the challenges with them operating a project under all of the rules from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. There are a lot of regulations that govern hydropower projects, and the revenues they were making led them to a decision to not pursue the project.
So it sounds like, following up on Councilman Hagley's, that we were benefiting from this project without paying for it in the past.
Yes.
On that. So now that PG&E is no longer wanting to take that load, this is kind of where it's being passed on, is looking around and saying, okay, who's going to hold the hat for this to pay for that one? Also, I know we had a Prop 1. I know you've probably looked at those, but that was kind of to build reservoirs and water storage. Was that a possibility for this project and looking at it?
It was not at the time. Prop 1, I believe it was passed in 2014. This project wasn't on the radar in the way that it is right now. And we did, just the concept of would it have been cost effective to take the project over and operate it differently? We looked especially at the environmental costs alone of providing fish passage, which would be a requirement for any relicensed facility, any facility operated by others. Those costs were very, very high. In the tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's simply to deal with some of the environmental impacts of the project, let alone the cost of maintaining the infrastructure at those dams. So we did not the short answer is no. Prop 1 monies were not considered. The liabilities of operating the project as it exists today sort of exceed the abilities of interests in the Russian River to assume. So they're just the costs are very high. At one point in time, some of the group of stakeholders, including Sonoma Water, looked at potential to relicense the project in another way. The cost to step through those relicensing studies were close to $20 million just to do the studies alone, and that exceeded the financial capabilities of us as a local region. So the short answer is no, but there is a piece of Prop 1 that we have been told can be used to help with some of the infrastructure costs. California Department of Fish and Wildlife is considering some monies that still remain in Prop 1 to help with that $9 million contribution. So it's not enough, anywhere close to enough to assume the liabilities of the entire project, but it will help defray some of the costs of this new project.
Okay, and you mentioned a 30-year with an additional 20 years. I know that sounds like a long term, but when you go back when Mendocino was constructed, Mendocino County didn't want to spend the extra money to make the dam higher. So I'm concerned that these mistakes, we're not looking far enough ahead. So at the end of this, let's say 50 years, what happens at that point?
So at the end of the 50 years, there is no guarantee that the project will continue to operate. We're hopeful that there will be enough benefit to the Eel River and a very small, if any, impact on the Eel River, that those interests would see the value in continuing to allow us to lease this water, but that will be resolved at the end of 50 years. And so that is the term of the current agreement.
So we could go back to where we were in the early 30s, where the Russian River at times of low rainfall would actually go dry during the summer. Is that a possibility?
We're hoping that this project, the new Eel Russian facility, works in concert with other efforts to increase the reliability of the Russian River system. And we're looking at, I'm sure you've probably read about or heard about forecast-informed reservoir operations that is going into effect permanently at Lake Mendocino. We expect it will be a permanent feature of the management of Lake Sonoma and could dramatically increase our ability to flexibly use Lake Sonoma if there are some other improvements made. And I won't go into much detail about that project now, but there's an eye toward increasing the flexibility in how water is released from Lake Sonoma via a secondary outlet. There, of course, as you mentioned, there's an effort to raise Cayuga Valley Dam. There's a feasibility study being undertaken right now by Mendocino County interests. And there are other options in the Russian River Valley, the Ukiah Valley, to recharge groundwater, use water on vineyards and farms in a different way. So we're hoping there's a portfolio of water resiliency solutions that can be brought to bear. Nothing that could come online as immediately as the continued diversion, which is the urgency to continue this effort with the new Eel Russian facility.
And when you're talking about managing the projects at Lake Sonoma and Lake Mendocino better, this is using extended forecasting and better techniques and data, historical data, to know when you can release ahead of time rather than kind of going, oh no, we've got a big storm coming now, we've got to release water, and getting behind that?
Precisely.
Okay, on that. And I think I'm going to stop there. That answers a lot of my questions. So thank you very much for explaining this, because I think that there's a lot of confusion about what's going on with this project, and that, you know, all of these environmental regulations were passed by the voters or the legislature. So it's not one person or a group of people that are getting behind to do this. It's really kind of, we've got ourselves in that, we've been going towards this, and thank you for your explanation and clarity on these questions.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Last time I heard about this project in any detail, there's a lot of concern and people scrambling to get together and put this plan together and to come to this point here tonight. And so I just want to acknowledge all the work that's gone into that. I think it's been a pretty monumental effort from a lot of different people who don't always agree with each other too. And so I just want to acknowledge that it's good to be at a place where we're looking at a plan. So my question is sort of a simple one. It's true that the diversion tunnel that's been used is going to continue to be used. Is that right?
That's correct.
What's the status of that in terms of its longevity, its construction, and so on?
So I haven't had the opportunity to walk that tunnel, but some of our engineers have. They were very impressed with the condition of the tunnel. The reports that we've received about its stability and its construction verify that. We believe it's going to last for the duration of this agreement. It seems to be in remarkably good condition.
Yeah, that's good news. I just didn't hear you mention it, and I thought, oh gosh, we're gonna have to put some money into that thing too. But I'm glad to hear that it's holding up. Thanks.
Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you. I want to align myself with the comments of Vice Mayor Herod and with regard to the amount of monumental effort that has gone into kind of putting this multi-jurisdictional, multifaceted proposal together, and doing so on a timeline that was dictated by PG&E and FERC is not always the easiest thing to do, to bring all of those parties together with a proposal. And so I guess my question is really, what is the alternative to this? Say it fails, or it does not reach the level of support necessary to have buy-in and move forward. What's the alternative? And what does that look like for Healdsburg?
Yeah, the very short answer is there is not an alternative. So if this process does not succeed, the diversion will end, and Lake Mendocino will be in a state of perpetual drought more frequently than it is now. That will mean a new flow schedule, most likely for the Russian River. It will mean conditions not unlike we saw in the drought in 2020 and 2021, where there are curtailments on the river, intense pressure on water rights holders to demonstrate that they have the ability to divert that water, and honestly, very low flow conditions for good portions of the year in the Russian River. So it is of critical importance that we're able to maintain this diversion and support the reliability of Lake Mendocino. There would be operational and very real consequences to the loss of the diversion.
Yeah, I just want to it's hard to remember, because sometimes when we move through some of those local crises, we just want to put them in the memory bank and not look back. But I just want to put ourselves back in the shoes of the summer of 2021 and the challenges that we were facing as a community, and to think that that may be a future state where we are needing to do those types of curtailments on an individual level, and businesses in the community and residents. I certainly, that is not an alternative that I think any of us would like to see happen on a regular basis. So thank you.
I had a couple questions as well. So has the water modeling related to the use for the community besides the fish? I mean, it seems like that part feels like it's kind of missing.
So those numbers that I showed, the 30,000 acre feet on average, that actually, those numbers were generated based on a model that our engineers run that accounts for the demands on the Russian River system, the storage in the lake, forecast informed reservoir operations, and it's informed by almost 100 years of hydrology. So it does factor in the needed flows downstream to maintain the flows per our water rights permits from the State Water Resources Control Board. So trying to keep those minimum flows in the Russian River system so that the Russian River can continue to provide all of its beneficial uses of water. So the answer is yes, it very much takes into account the demands and the needs on the Russian River system.
And one of the things that you mentioned is the capacity of Lake Mendocino, that if that were better, then we would have 50,000 acre feet versus 30 or something, I think.
That is if there were no restrictions on storage in Lake Mendocino and the rules, we could divert at any time the water was available to be diverted from the Eel River, more like 50 or 55,000 acre feet a year as opposed to 30,000 acre feet a year. So it is a condition where the more storage that is built into the system upstream of Lake Sonoma, the more water that could be diverted through the project and put to use.
So to that point, have there been studies done about how to increase the capacity of Lake Mendocino besides like dredging it or something like that?
So right now there is a feasibility study being conducted by the Army Corps of Engineers. There are local sponsors required to conduct that study. Those local sponsors are the Mendocino Inland Water and Power Commission and the Lytton Rancheria. They've both banded together to help support that study that the Army Corps of Engineers is undertaking. And it's looking at options for increased storage and resiliency in the upper Russian River. The focus is on Lake Mendocino, but they will run to ground the question of dredging, increasing the height of the dam, those sorts of physical infrastructure improvements that could make the lake more reliable.
Mhm. So yeah, the city of Healdsburg, of course, has done some work on ASR wells, and we did our purple pipe to give us some more resiliency. So is that something that could also be done along with this to create more storage?
Yes, I think the use of groundwater more flexibly, certainly in the Potter Valley and in agricultural regions and in other cities' boundaries and jurisdictions in the Upper Russian River, is something certainly that would help support the reliability of Lake Mendocino and this diversion. Those are beyond, some of those ideas are likely beyond the scope of that Army Corps study. They might be included, but I think it's going to be incumbent on water users to think about their use of water and how they could extend their supplies and build more storage, independent of some of the actions taken by the Eel Russian Project Authority, certainly. Think about the Eel Russian Project Authorities making sure the water can continue to flow into the watershed. How it's used and stored once it's here is something that will have to be resolved by all the users in the basin.
Yeah, that seems very important in that the diversions are going to be greater in the winter versus spring and summer, which is when we really need the water. So we need some more storage, I would guess, at that point, potentially. I wanted to ask one other question about the water rights that City of Healdsburg currently has. Will those change with this project?
So the city of Healdsburg is currently covered under something called the 10,000 acre foot reservation. Those rights are to storage in Lake Mendocino. Those rights would continue to be enjoyed by the city. So that is, I understand there is a bit of agreement on the water supply use of some of the water stored in Lake Sonoma that is a part of your supply. I think as Patrick mentioned, perhaps 20% of your supply. Sonoma Water is engaged with the city now and renewing an agreement to continue the use of that water, even expand it a bit. So the city is in a good position from a water rights perspective to continue to take advantage of the water that's stored in the reservoir, in both reservoirs.
Great, thank you. If we have no more other questions from council, we'll open this up to public comment. Would anybody like to comment on this topic? Please come forward. I'm not seeing anyone. I'm sure as it gets closer, we're going to get a lot more comment on it. When people realize the impact this is going to have. So do we have, Councilmember Kelly?
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a resolution in support of the Eel Russian Project Authority and the new Eel Russian facility.
I'll second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Edwards?
Yes.
Councilmember Higley?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harrod?
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell?
Yes. Thank you both very much. That was a great presentation. We'll look forward to more, I'm sure.
Thank you for the resolution support.
Thank you, Patrick. So we kind of switch gears here a little bit from where are we going to get our water to official city flower planter tree. Director Themig.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. It's a great segue into this topic. Next slide, please. So we're here tonight to follow up from the May presentation where we talked about options for an official flower plant or tree And your requested action tonight is to receive feedback obtained from a community survey on the different options that were proposed and to direct staff, if you're so inclined, to develop a resolution for a future meeting where the city would actually adopt its official flower plant and or tree. Next slide, please. So this walks through a little bit of the background for those who may not have been part of this initially. At the suggestion of the Healdsburg Garden Club, and specifically Mary Kelly, who's here in the audience tonight, City Council adopted a goal to do this in 24-25. We're a little past that, but we got started in 24-25. Staff asked the Garden Club if they'd help us with this initiative, given their expertise in native plants and ecology of the area. Teresa Wistrom from the Garden Club stepped up, and she's also here in the audience tonight, and with the assistance of Wendy Smith, who is a past president of the Native Plant Society, to help develop some options for City Council's consideration. And then on May 19th, you asked us to gather a little bit of community feedback, which is what we did. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned previously, a number of different organizations have adopted official flower plant trees. The state of California, obviously the poppy and the giant redwoods are the cities. Locally, Santa Rosa is the only city that I could find in Sonoma County that has an official flower plant or tree, which happens to be the Santa Rosa plum tree. You'll see some familiar names on there. The blue-eyed grass from San Diego is their official flower. And then there are some ones that are not native. The city of Los Angeles has non-native flower and trees that it adopted. Next slide, please. So there were a couple different characteristics or considerations that we asked the Garden Club to consider when they were establishing their list. One is that it should be native to Healdsburg. And it should be relatively common in the area so people could actually go out and explore for it and potentially find it. And then it should have some value, whether it be natural beauty or a pollinator or historical, cultural significance, for example, to our indigenous community. That was really something that we felt was important to include in this. Next slide, please. So, as a refresh, the candidates are, and there are 6 of them. The first is the native iris. There are essentially 2 different natives that are found in the area, the Douglas iris and the bull-tubed iris. They're found in different colors, purple and blue typically in the area. Next slide. The second is the yellow Mariposa lily, which is typically found in more arid areas like Healdsburg Ridge. You might find it in the open prairie areas of Healdsburg Ridge. Next slide, please. Third is the scarlet fritillary, which is a reddish, dark red flower that attracts pollinators with its shape and beauty. Next slide, please. Next is the blue-eyed grass. I mentioned this is the official flower of the city of Santa Rosa, also found here locally. Next slide, please. The California native grape, we learned quite a bit in the first presentation about the California native grape being an important species that helped all grapes throughout the world essentially survive some of the different threats that it had faced from different diseases. So very well known, not what you typically see in the vineyards. This is typically found along creeks and wet areas. And next slide. And then the final candidate was, of course, our very magnificent oak trees. There were 3 that were kind of classified together because they are all native and they're all found in the area. The valley oaks, the coast live oaks, and the blue oaks. Next slide, please. Survey says we had about 173 participants in the survey. We offered it both in English and Spanish. Unfortunately, we didn't get any Spanish responses, so all of these were from our English-speaking community or part of our community. And of the 6, the oak tree received the majority or the most votes in favor of it, with just over 34%, followed not too far by the California grape. And moving down the line was the native iris and the blue-eyed grass, and the scarlet fritillary was the final one. Next slide, please. We asked folks some additional background information, like what's most important in considering what the official flower plant or tree should be. And as you see there, native to the area was, of course, number 1. people could have multiple responses. So aesthetic appeal, so the beauty of the particular species, followed by the cultural significance. There were several open-ended comments, which I'll talk a bit about, how people really appreciated to learn more about the cultural significance and be able to include that in their consideration. The abundance and then the ease of maintenance was the final. Next slide, please. I thought this was interesting. The majority of folks are somewhat familiar, but not extremely familiar with what native species live in the area or around the region. So 54% said they're somewhat familiar. And we have some education to do, I think. 2% said they're not familiar at all. So something we can work on. Next slide, please. This one is how important is it that it is native to our area, and very important, obviously, was the predominant one, followed by somewhat important. Next slide, please. And then age group, the abundance of respondents were age 65 or over, but there were mixed ages underneath that as well. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that there were some really interesting comments that I enjoyed reading in this open-ended comments. These are some that I selected not to sway the council in any one particular direction, but they did reflect the different options throughout there. The flower is open, sunny, and bright. I think it's a good reflection of the town of Healdsburg. I grew up in Healdsburg, surrounded by oak trees. I think they're very welcoming, perfect to climb or sit underneath. I love the Native American connections on many. The oak and many others are found throughout California. The grape just seemed obvious. Thank you for the research and details you provided. It was hard to choose. It was a good one. And this is a great idea. And I vote for a flowering plant and a tree. Next slide, please. So in summary, these are the 6 candidates for City Council's consideration. I do know that a few members of the Garden Club are here who may be interested in sharing additional feedback that they've received since we started this process. And I believe that that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. This is a fun topic. So questions from council? Chris?
You showed examples of other cities and what plants they'd chosen. Is that just a sampling, or is there just a few cities in California that have done this?
Just a sampling.
Okay.
There aren't a lot, sorry, council members and Councilmember Herod. There aren't a ton of cities that have that. In Sonoma County, the only one that I could find was the city of Santa Rosa. So of the 11 cities, Sonoma County, help me out here, 9, thank you. Thank you. Of the 9 cities, only one has selected a flower plant or tree up to this point.
I'm just curious if we chose one of those selections at some point, I guess we will, but if we'd be sharing that with another city or not, if it would be, if we did go with the front runner, which looks like oak right now, for example, would we be the only community in California to have done so? Maybe.
Council members and Councilmember Herod, I don't know the answer to that question. I do know that, for example, the town of Windsor, their logo is an oak tree, a valley oak, I assume. But they, as far as I know, I couldn't find any documentation that they adopted it as their official flower plant or tree. Similar to Healdsburg having the grape leaf on our logo, this isn't intended to change the logo. It's something that evolved over time. So it's a good question. I did not find any record of an oak tree being adopted by another California city. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
And I think you just answered a question that came up from a lot of people that that if we select a plant, that we're not going to change our logo.
Mayor and members of council, that's certainly your choice, but that is not part of my direction or my research tonight.
Maybe later. Okay.
Do you have questions? No? So let's open this up to public comment. Please come forward. Welcome. Welcome back.
Hi, thanks. Well, I just want to thank you for being so interested in this project. It was one of our favorite things to talk about. But I'm just here to answer questions. You've seen our report, and it's pretty much up to you to make a decision. And as I said it previously, it's really hard. So I have to be a little objective about this and hope for the best.
Thank you. Mary, come on up. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to say, Mark, fantastic survey. Thank you so much. You did a great job. And I was really happy to see how many people participated. And Chris, I'd like to answer your question. I thought I saw somewhere that the blue oak was actually chosen by Sacramento. And yes, we do have a band of blue oaks here. We're the furthest west location of blue oaks. Sorry, can you hear me okay? But it makes sense for Sacramento to have the blue oak because it's more of a Sierra foothill and the coast foothills, coast range foothills, also in the Great Valley. And the live oaks are magnificent trees too. So, you know, this is kind of like deciding between Bach and Beethoven, which is better. And I'm just giving my personal opinion that to me, the Valley Oak really represents Healdsburg, and we can see so many of them. We also see live oaks out here. There's something special about the Valley Oak. And by the way, I called Deborah Fudge to ask her what that magnificent tree is, and she wasn't sure, but she thought it was the live oak. So I thought, okay, well, that's our chance to then claim the Valley Oak. So I wanted to say, with all the important issues you are facing, I have a quote from Wendell Berry, and he wrote that it all grows from affection. Our care of the earth, our care of each other, it all boils down to what we feel true affection for. And I think people subconsciously don't, they know that those trees are magnificent, but it's kind of our time to bring awareness of you know, what it is makes our world so special, and what a simple solution to the climate crisis we have with these carbon breathing trees. I guess what I would like to say is Teresa made the suggestions, so I feel like I'm a little bit off the hook from having to be objective. So thank you for letting me speak, and there's a lot more I'd like to say, but if you have any questions, just please feel free to call. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Not seeing anyone, so I'll bring it back to the council for deliberation, comments, recommendations. Ariel, you want to go first?
Not really. This is a tough one. This is like the most political decision we've ever made, I feel like. Well, I'm delighted about this process. I'll talk about that, in that it's really wonderful to hear from our community members, especially those we don't often hear from, to invite them in to participate and educate us about a subject matter that is not one that is, you know, they didn't teach us about this in law school. And so I'm really delighted to hear, you know, what the community's feedback has been. I think for me, I'd like to lean against the flower that Santa Rosa already has, because I feel like that's theirs. I think that the Valley Oak for me really represents, you know, when they named Hotel Trio in town, and sorry to like bring it to the hotel, I was like, what is trio? Like, what is that even, you know, I know what a trio is, but, and they talked about how Healdsburg is at the intersection of these valleys, right? The Alexander Valley, the Russian River Valley. And I think we don't really think about us being at this, you know, this center point of our amazing agricultural valleys, but it's true, and they have a long, you know, storied history, not just being about grapes. I mean, we were the what was it, the buckle belt of the prune buckle, or sorry, it was before I was alive. It was the what of the buckle of the prune belt. Apologies. And so while I think the grape is important, and it is on our city logo, the grape leaf, I don't know necessarily if that for me, I mean, it is very much important to this community, and the wine grape is, as you know, so much of our economy is connected in and around wine production and ag. I think about the history of the oaks and the valley oak as something that has been here for thousands of years and will continue here, hopefully after, for thousands more years. And so I'm leaning towards the oak, but I'm certainly open to hearing what my colleagues think. And this is definitely an exciting opportunity to get to plant our flag in something that will last generations. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Hagley?
Yeah, no, this was kind of a fun thing, and thank you, Mary, for reaching out about this. And looking at the responses, I agree. The oak tree, to Chris's question, if we make it the official city one, then we could trademark it, and then Windsor has to take theirs. No, we wouldn't do that. But yeah, I agree with the oak. I mean, my kids went to Live Oak preschool. It's a lot of oak around here, so I like the feedback that I saw. I'd be open to not changing the logo, but if we do an oak, then have like stickers or something we could give away that has an oak on it or something like that. But I have no interest in changing our logo. Happy to have a second one that celebrates whatever we choose tonight. Personally, I like the iris. I like the look and color of it, but I'm happy to go with I agree with the majority that came back, the feedback with the oak.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Edwards and then Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I think that, with the grape, we kind of get that by de facto. Whether we go with it or not, people will always associate us with the grape. And I think the Valley Oak is a really good specific oak tree because it really ties into the history. It's been incorporated as food, shelter for millennia, for our native indigenous people here. There's even been a couple of books written on the oak tree. Further up in Mendocino was a really nice book written on the oak. So I think that the oak, it's sturdy, it's strong, and it's been here. And that's what we'll be here in Healdsburg.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, Mary, thanks for those thoughtful words from Wendell Berry. And I think the sentiment behind this is you really deepened it, and I appreciate that. I really was happy to have the opportunity to learn about these different plants. I'm not a plant expert, and now I'll be looking for these flowers when I go out walking on the ridge or wherever. And it was great to be able to consider them. I had an early favorite that has made the front running, but that's okay. And because that flower will be out there, and I'll be looking for it. But so thanks for that opportunity. That was very cool. But I think the momentum is with the Valley Oak, and in deference to the survey and the comments here tonight, and also back to Councilmember Kelly's words about recognizing our links with the Native community. The oak really is a pivotal choice here because that was a primary food source around this area. And if you go to certain areas, I don't even right around Healdsburg know them, but there's a few places out near Sebastopol, like on Yano Road. You'll see areas where you can really get a glimpse of what the valleys used to look like here, and it was an oak forest. It wasn't as dense as a redwood forest, right? It was still in the valley, and it's really interesting to understand how primary that species is to this area. So I think if we did land with that choice, I'd be in support of it.
Thank you. I agree. I'm pleased that we did the survey. I'm also pleased that the survey was so clear because I think it would have been a difficult choice for this council to come up to this same consensus, perhaps, because that first time we were all like, all over the place, right? So also in when we were talking with Laura Fish Summersoul's family members, they talked about collecting acorns from the oak and using it for food. And it was kind of a fun story associated with it that I won't go into. But yeah, it just seems like the right thing, a good choice. And so with that, do we want to direct staff to develop a resolution naming the official city, the Live Oak? Valley Oak, sorry. Was that a consensus of council?
Yes.
Yes? Yes, okay.
Can I?
Councilmember Hickman, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the thoughts I had was if it goes the direction of the oak tree, like, okay, when we're talking about flowers and there's, oh, well, maybe we could pass out seeds or whatever. And I mean, I don't even know if this is like feasible or not, but either find a magnificent one and say that's the official tree, like, oh, here's the tree, or in one of the parks, plant one that is the official, has like a little plaque or something. I don't know, just something fun I thought of that. It's like there's the actual official one that kind of represents all of them around here. I don't know.
I like
I
that
think we
idea.
should definitely give it a name.
Yeah.
So that it is has a.
Sounds like another survey.
Yes. What shall we name? Once we find the tree, everyone submit your photos and then we name Okie Dokie with its name.
Let's start with the resolution, the resolution naming it as the official tree. How's that sound?
Will do. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I want to share one thing too. Like, I didn't know the history of the native grape, and we have the leaf on our logo, and I think that's even a story that we can share as we talk about the importance of grapes. It's not just the fact that we have production now, but that served an important role throughout the world. So I learned something thanks to the Garden Club in this process. So I appreciate it. So
thank you.
We will return, and I will also keep an eye out. I'll talk to our team about a potential candidate for the official Valley Oak.
There's a lot of them out there, though, right?
There are.
That'll be fun.
All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Kelly.
I just wanted to add, I didn't say this in my comments. Sorry, Director Thiemann, you're welcome to exit stage left. I just wanted to thank our garden club for not only this and bringing this to us, but also all of the ways they help and beautify our city and educate our residents and engage and bring people together and build community. What you all do and have been doing for so many years is really remarkable. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of our community and dedicating your time to this. Thanks.
Yeah. And I'd like to echo that too. We started working closely with the Garden Club in their plant sales in the spring and the fall. But the problem is they have too many tomatoes plants. And now I have way too many tomatoes at my house. So I appreciate them, but next year I got to dial it back. So
if you have extra tomatoes, I'm in. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. So now we go to item 8C, inclusionary housing ordinance in Luffy. Housing Director Stephen Sotomayor.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council, Stephen Sotomayor, Housing Director. Today I'll be presenting staff's report on potential updates to the inclusionary housing ordinance, specifically focusing on the in lieu fee that applies to very small residential projects. Today we're asking council for direction on whether or not to move forward with removing this fee for projects that are 4 units or less. Next slide, please. So the purpose of this item is to receive input from the council and to determine whether eliminating the in lieu fee for small projects makes sense given recent changes in state law and local housing conditions. We're not amending the ordinance tonight, but rather we're seeking council's direction to initiate an amendment and bring back these changes at a later date if the council decides to move forward with such changes. Next slide. So the inclusionary housing ordinance ensures that new market rate residential development contributes directly to affordable housing. It's been a tool that's been long used in California for quite some time to advance affordable housing. Developers can comply with this in a few ways: by building units on site, by building off site, or dedicating land or paying an in lieu fee. Healdsburg adopted its IHO back in 1998, and it's been updated several times with several housing committees, and through our HAP and our housing element work group has looked at it, our housing element has looked at it. It's been a policy in development for quite some time, with recent revisions as soon as early as 2024 is recent that it's been updated. Next slide. So our current requirements under our inclusionary housing ordinance, so projects with 5 or more units must provide 20% of the homes on site for affordable housing. So generally every 5th unit becomes an on-site affordable housing. That's one of the highest inclusionary rates for on-site in California. Generally in Sonoma County, we find that our on-site inclusionary is much higher than other areas of California, which is largely related to our housing shortage, as well as the need for affordable housing here in Sonoma County. Projects with 4 or fewer units may pay an in lieu fee instead. So those projects that don't achieve that 5-unit threshold can choose to pay a fee, which is adopted through resolution for a fee schedule that currently we have at about $20.49 a square foot for sale and $7.53 a square foot for rentals. These other provisions in there, as we know through many of our projects, is that these affordable units must be built concurrently with the market rate homes and distributed throughout the development and have like amenities. For projects with over 10, a percentage of those do need to be dedicated to 3-bedroom units. Next slide. So the in lieu fee is only available to very small projects as mentioned. Instead of building an affordable unit, the developer pays a fee that goes into the city's affordable housing account that is restricted for uses for affordable housing. This fee is calculated by square foot, as I mentioned earlier, with different rates for for sale and rental projects. Fees are typically paid at the time of building permit, although small subset can be deferred, and recent legislation has also allowed for affordable housing to have some of these deferred if it's an affordable project. We also have provisions within our current inclusionary housing ordinance for hardship or waivers, or the city council can take alternate compliance paths such as land dedication or offsite building is a potential route, but those do require a special council approval if so choose. Next slide. So today we're looking at this from an impact on a small project. The fee represents actually one of the largest single cost components for small residential development in Healdsburg. For large custom homes, it's about 5% of the total valuation of the project. But for missing middle unit and infill project, it accounts to about 3 to 4% of project valuation and up to 30% of all city fees that are assessed upon homes. Given the narrow margins on many small projects and our desire to see increased housing stock that addresses the missing middle, this can sometimes prove to be an obstacle in building for smaller developers or for those that are trying to build within a certain range that would address our housing shortage. Next slide. So some of the examples that I provided in the staff report, we took some examples from our development process and looked at how these fees impact different types of projects. And so as I mentioned before, for a large custom home with a building permit valuation somewhere near $900,000, you can look at it as the total of 40% of all city development fees. It's a giant chunk of what people are paying. And then roughly about 5% of the total valuation of the home. When we get into a smaller missing middle infill home, the in lieu fee typically represents about 20-30% of the total impact development fees, or about 3 to 4% of the project valuation. And so you can see for a smaller project, that could be a bigger hit from a standpoint of what they're paying compared to the overall development cost versus a luxury home that might be able to absorb that cost because market prices can be adjusted. In an example of on-site, a 7-unit subdivision, let's take you take one affordable unit must be built on site, and then we have fractional units paid as an in lieu fee, which it's about 28.6% of the total inclusionary obligation for this example. And then also the developer is going to also absorb for the on-site house that you'll see is that they'll have to sell below market rate. And generally that is another amount, a dollar amount that goes into the bottom line of the development. Today, when we are looking at the inclusionary housing fee under these scenarios, one thing to note is that the fees that would be affected would be those under remodel. When people increase the square footage of their home, they're paying a fee for that remodel. Those fees would also be included, but the fractional fees are another policy question to consider, as I'll get to later, that potentially we could look at. But those fractional fees still go off the schedule. So if you have a 0.4 of a unit, it gets assessed under that in lieu fee. Next slide. The change directly supports, the city council adopted, a number of recent state laws. So if we look at SB 9, SB 10, SB 684, and 1123, you'll notice that the state is really pushing towards removing obstacles towards housing construction, removing barriers to increase production and getting to higher densities. In the context of eliminating the in lieu fee for projects under 4, this proposal could potentially remove a cost barrier to small infill projects, support mixed income integration as across neighborhoods, and encourage higher density infill consistent with recent state and local housing goals. As we experience in the state, we're seeing that there's more by right developments, more ministerial improvements to get people to build more on lots to increase housing supply. And this would align with that type of approach of removing barriers. Next slide. So aligning with our city housing goals, this change directly supports the council adopted fiscal year 25-26 affordable housing goal to update the in lieu fee for smaller projects and to decrease cost barriers. It also supports our housing element goal 2, which emphasizes removing regulatory barriers and policies such as policy 2.2, which calls for the streamlined review for projects of 10 or fewer units. Finally, it aligns with our pro-housing designation, which has a large emphasis on removing governmental constraints towards housing development. Next slide. So since 2019, the city has collected approximately $890,000 in lieu fees, and about 30% of that from our estimate comes from remodels, additions, or fractional units. So when we look at this from that standpoint, you can see that a lot of these might be just direct costs to individuals building homes, but then we also have these fractional units and also remodels. One thing to note is that when we look across the board, remodels tend to not be slowed down by this fee. They tend to be absorbed. Generally, it's a higher end type of remodel that would be absorbed in that cost, and it doesn't seem to have a major impact on those being done. So eliminating the in lieu fee for smaller projects would reduce our revenue, but it would also reduce the development costs for homeowners and small scale infill developers, which if we look at what we truly need in Healdsburg is supply is becoming more of an issue. The more supply we have, the more likely it is that we start getting to this missing middle product. Limited supply obviously increases prices, and so encouraging more development can lead to achieving the goals around missing middle projects, as well as increasing our housing supply. Next slide. And so today, the action requested today is to consider eliminating the in lieu fee for projects with 4 or fewer units. That would also include the remodels that are done as far as that in lieu fee. Additional policy considerations that the council may choose to consider is whether to continue collecting fractional unit fees or rather to round them down to the nearest whole unit or round them to the nearest whole unit to simplify administration. So if the council did take an action today to say, we would like you to come back with an ordinance that does remove the in lieu fee, we may want to consider that we will still have to keep a fee schedule for those fractional fees, or we could simply simplify that and have the fractional units just be rounded. And additionally, items for future consideration, but maybe worth looking at, is to think about whether revising the current 5-unit threshold for on-site inclusionary requirements and then consider increasing it to 10 units to align more closely with recent state legislation, where 10 units seems to be a standard of when the threshold of when different laws are triggered. Next slide. So should the council provide direction today to modify the in lieu fee under the inclusionary housing ordinance, the next steps would be to incorporate council direction into the draft ordinance language, present those amendments at the Planning Commission, return to City Council for the introduction, and then the subsequent second reading, and then to begin the implementation on this project. Next slide. And with that, I conclude my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do we have questions from council? Councilmember Hagley?
I can't remember from our budget discussion, but how much does Measure S kick in every year right now?
Sorry, my mic was off. I'm actually, maybe if I can take a look, but generally I believe it's about 1.2 million or so, or in that range for the Affordable Housing Fund.
That sounds about right. I had thought like 1.3 or something, but we have a couple more hotels coming online. You don't have to answer right now. We can get back.
But I would say in that $1 million range is about the general collection.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yeah, I'm curious, and I appreciate that we're taking a look at this. And I think, we've been applying the in lieu fee to so many different types of projects, everything from a remodel project to, large multi-unit development and single family homes. And, I think that it can't really be a one size fits all. And so I think this is a very unique surgical way to be looking at it and to say what is and isn't working and where are we seeing the barriers to housing production when we're constantly talking about how do we get more housing going, especially in a community where we have really specific limitations like the growth management ordinance of how can we actually build the housing we know we need. So with that, I'm curious, are there other fees that you think we should be considering or looking at? Have you guys had that conversation more holistically about other barriers to housing production? And do you think that this should be like one step of many steps, or this is like a one and done as it relates to fees?
I think that conversation has been going for a while, and we've seen other cities start to look at their impact fees. But, unlike an affordable housing fee, this kind of becomes a closed policy loop after a while, that you charge a fee for affordable housing, but the fee is starting to become an extreme cost for people trying to build housing. From the other fee standpoint for this report, we obviously looked at the largest fee that comes out of it, which is this one currently, but I have not looked further into the impact fees at this time.
So can you talk about how this would relate with the GMO, the kind of the infill projects of what we're looking at, right? And are they exempt from the GMO? How does this work?
So as far as exemption from the GMO, we would still have, the growth management ordinance in place. And I believe some of the state law allows by right development that, for example, getting increased density on lots. I think at the crux of, where we're at with this in lieu fee is that housing supply is becoming an issue, and what we would really like is people taking advantage of these different state laws that allow you to increase the density on lots, like SB 9, where you can lot split and get additional units on there. And what we wouldn't want to do is discourage people from building additional units when they incur a fee on that lot. So specifically to whether or not units are exempt under the GMO, I'm not quite 100% sure, but I do know that, the fee does pose a barrier when it comes to making a decision about a project and how many units you do want to put on there. So increased density or developers that are going after building more units on a lot, this may be an incentive for them to start looking at that more closely.
So when you talk about maybe the possibility of moving it from 5 units up to 10 per the states, that would be, someone would have to go and get allocations though, because this would be regular. This is not low-income housing. This is regular middle housing, right?
Yes, they would still need allocations under the growth management ordinance.
Okay, because they're not that, so infill projects aren't exempt necessarily.
No, but for example, if somebody chose to use Measure P or something of that nature to fill in here, and while those may not fall under here, it could also make a decision if I'm a market rate developer and I start looking at it and I go, well, hit my 5th unit, that one's going to cost me a lot of money. So either I got to get really a lot of units to make up for that deficit, or I'm going to choose to build at a lesser rate.
Great, thank you. Any questions? No, then we'll open this up to public comment. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Mitchell, Vice Mayor Herod, council members and staff. My name is Omar Lopez. I'm the Senior Program Associate at Generation Housing. We support the removal of in lieu fees for small projects, but we want to encourage you to go further by making it applicable to projects of 10 units or fewer, as this number is consistent across state and local policies. Alongside that, we do encourage you to raise the threshold for inclusionary units to the 10 unit as well. These adjustments together would open the door for smaller infill housing, as you've been talking about, that is often really hard to build and finance, but would be super beneficial for Healdsburg. This is also the right time to take a comprehensive look at all the development fees that you have and to ensure that they are aligned with your housing goals. Other cities in the county are doing this if they haven't already, and Healdsburg has an opportunity to lead by making your fee structure really work for housing production. Lastly, we were glad to see that SB 10 was called out in the staff report. This is an important tool for creating more infill opportunities, and we look forward to following up with you on how it could be put to work here in Healdsburg. Thank you for your time and for your service.
Thank you. Anyone else? Welcome.
Thanks. Hello, I'm Jessica Pilling. Evelyn, nice to be in front of you all. Evelyn, just to let you know, SB 9 is exempt from the GMO ordinance. I am the only person in Healdsburg who has used SB 9. I have a building permit in hand. I've gone through this. So I'm here to talk about that a little bit. I can echo absolutely everything that was in Stephen's presentation tonight. Burdening builders with this exorbitant fee deters the actual goal, which is to build more housing and make it more affordable. It's simple economics, supply and demand. When there's more supply, prices decrease and housing becomes more affordable. If you've looked at our housing market lately, you've already seen this is happening with rentals. The rental market is crazy right now. All the prices are dropping. I know the staff report notes that staff has not observed that the current fee structure has discouraged such projects, but I'm here to tell you otherwise as a builder of a small project. It was a huge deterrent for me. $40,000 on my SB 9 project. We're still sitting here with the building permit in hand because we can't get enough funding just to build our project, and it's been extended. So there's huge hurdles that average people here in town face if they're trying to help solve this housing problem and actually build the infill housing that the state is trying to encourage, and ideally Healdsburg is also trying to encourage. So I do encourage you to look at this and I would say eliminate this fee as suggested. I would also suggest, as I didn't catch his name, but as he suggested, looking at the other impact fees, as Ariel asked. They're huge. It's a lot of money. It's a ton of money. I know you guys do that, I think, for ADUs and things. They aren't subject or under a certain square footage. But if you truly want more housing, you're going to have to start doing that, or you're limiting building to the huge developers, because who can afford it? It's exorbitant. And I believe the reason you have perhaps not seen discouragement of this fee in the past is that the fee has been due at the time of building permit pickup. So people maybe are not even aware of this fee, then they go to pick up their building permit and you have to pay it up front. So here's another 40 grand on top of this to pick up your permit today to go forward with your project. Not many people have the luxury of holding their project and saying, oh, wait, we'll deter this, or whatever. It's a lot of money. So I think maybe that's why people haven't really been fighting this or hearing about it, because it's a last minute thing. You've already invested so much that are you going to give up your project at that moment over $40,000? The other thing I wanted to say is that the current notes claim that instead of constructing an on-site inclusionary unit, eligible applicants for residential or mixed-use projects with 4 or fewer new dwelling units may pay a fee that the city uses. This is inaccurate. There is no alternative. This is not optional compliance. There is no choice. If you're building one house, you're not going to make your house an affordable housing unit for someone, so you have to pay the fee. it's pitched as if there's an option, but there's not. So I would encourage you to look at this, and I support eliminating that and looking further at the other fees.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing anyone. We'll bring it back to council. Do we have comments, questions, further action? Ariel? I see you're going to the button.
Yeah, sorry. I think I'd like to suggest that we eliminate the in lieu fee for small projects, and with the goal of increasing, encouraging more housing production.
Yeah, I agree. I think moving it to 10 units, eliminating that, I'd also be in favor of eliminating it for the remodels and expansions. Kind of going back to my question about Measure S funding. I mean, is this a tax or are we trying to encourage housing? And I think expansions take that into account. I think we need to take into account energy efficiency upgrades that happen when people expand and renovate their homes. This isn't for tonight, but I hope that this is not checking the box that, okay, we're discussing, the barriers to construction and different things like that, because I do want to, at some point include a discussion on fees related to upgrading electric panels and EV charging infrastructure and things like that, that also are cost barriers as we're trying to meet some of the climate goals that we have. So I think all of this ties together. And ultimately it comes back to housing. When I first saw this, I was like, oh, well, it'd be great if we could encourage housing and whatever those corridors we had during the Measure O discussion, I forgot during our density study, some of those, like, to try to encourage there, but it's like, okay, no, that's not what this is for. And so for me, it's, I'd be comfortable with 10 units and under, eliminating the fees, and also eliminating on the expansions and remodels, because I think that does help with the energy efficiency things that we're looking at. And then also tie that into if you've got to expand your panels, electrical panels, upgrade things like that, that we waive the fees on that.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yep, you wanted to add something, or?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I just had a question about the fees that Councilmember Higley just mentioned about, like, upgrading panels. Those are not in lieu fees. That's a totally different fees that we're talking about.
Correct.
Okay, great. Just checking.
Yeah, that's why I said we'd discuss it at a different time.
Vice Mayor.
Thanks. Well, I mean, we're all aware of how challenging it is to build housing in Healdsburg. So we're in a position now where we're looking for every little way that we can get an advantage and move towards the housing goals that we have. And this is just a small thing. It's not a small amount of money. You said 267,000 over what period of time?
Since 2019, it was collected about 890,000. Of that, about 30% came from fractional fees and remodels, and not just necessarily like straight construction development. What I did want to clarify is that removing the in lieu fee for small projects would also eliminate it for remodels or expansions. So that's already included in the action requested today. It's the fractional fee that is the other one that still would retain that schedule for on-site building. If you got a fractional unit, there's still a fee charged for that, or we could choose to say you could round that to the nearest unit.
So it's not a small amount of money, but I think that I know that I'm in favor of doing this, and I suspect the rest of the council feels the same way. We'll see, but that's it expresses the investment we have as a council and in moving our housing needle forward. And so even though it's not a small amount, I think it's well worth it if we can get some traction in areas where we have room to build, where in other areas it's much more difficult.
Councilmember Edwards?
Yeah, I want to thank you for bringing this forward, because it shows that how this council is determined any way we can to try to bring housing, whether it be on the ballot measure, if we can reduce fees, to really see. And I really hope that this proves that the fees were an impediment, and hope to see more projects coming forward, particularly moving up to the 10, aligning with the state. So I think that it shows our commitment as a council that we're really wanting to get housing for that missing middle in this county, in the city.
Totally agree. Can you, but before we move on, can you explain fractional fees again to me? I don't really totally understand what we're talking about there.
So for example, if you did go above the 5, if you hit 5 units, you would have one on-site inclusionary housing unit. So you'd have to build on-site. And where we can see this today is a lot in the subdivisions that we have. For example, the Arden subdivision at Chiquita Grove, where they build the house and then it's put at below market value and that achieves the affordability. If you have, not a whole number of that, so every 5th unit, but you do 7, you might end up with 0.4 of a unit that you owe. At that point, that 0.4 is assessed against the in lieu fee schedule. So you would pay, you would build on site, and then 2, you would be charged a fee for the fractional unit based upon the in lieu fee schedule. That portion is not part of the recommended action today. It was a separate consideration for the council. That would still exist if we just removed it for projects that are 4 or less. The fractional fee is more of a question around the on-site and whether or not we'd want to round those numbers or keep the fee schedule in place and still charge for those fractional units.
Thank you. That's very helpful. So I am in agreement with my fellow council members that I think this is the right thing to do at this point to pursue. But I guess the question would be, do we want to move it for small projects being then up to 10 now we're saying? 10 or less? Or is that what? No.
10 and under.
10, yeah, 10 or less, right?
10 and under.
And under.
Yeah.
Anything under, yeah, okay.
So
Isn't
11.
that always the same thing?
Yeah.
Maybe I could help. I think there's 3 questions. One is to remove it for small projects with 4 or less units, and that would remove the in lieu fee for those types of projects that don't trigger the on-site. The second question would be whether or not to eliminate the fractional fee that comes from on-site building, but leaves you with a fraction of a unit that would be charged against the in lieu fee. And then I generally pose it as a council item for future discussion or potentially direction to look at is whether or not aligning with the 10-unit threshold that generally goes with a lot of these state laws to move that, because our on-site right now is 20%. That would reduce it. And I think that potentially aligns more, but it also would produce less units. I think that produce less units for somebody that's got an on-site requirement. It wouldn't trigger until 10, so you could build up to that 9 threshold, and then you would have that 10th unit have to be on site, which is generally what state law kind of looks at is that it's not across everything, but it's generally a 10-unit threshold. Or that potentially could encourage people to build more units before triggering an on-site inclusionary, which would increase housing supply, but reduce the amount of affordable houses that would come from the on-site requirement. So I think that one's a little more tricky in the long run to take a look at because we do benefit from on-site. One thing I think is with a growth management ordinance, we're looking at this through one lens. If that were to go away, I think that there would be another policy discussion. This has been an evolving kind of policy discussion since it was first adopted in 1998.
Councilmember Kelly.
So I think just responding to your first question about 4 or fewer units, I would like to support the idea that we remove the fee for that, because that's what I think in the staff report and what I've kind of looked at, especially how it relates to the GMO development categories, that 4 or fewer tend to be actually the smaller projects. I don't think the rounding up number or what fractional?
Rounding to the nearest unit.
That one to me is a little trickier because we really don't have a lot of those mid-sized projects happening in Healdsburg. Like we either have the mom and pop developers who are able to access those GMO allocations for the small projects that are not triggered in the category A versus category B. So those projects can get built. I don't know if today someone could walk in and get one of those building permits, but historically they've been more available, whereas the other category are gobbled up until 2035 or something because of all of the very large projects that are holding on to all of those allocations. So that 10-unit development doesn't exist in practicality in Healdsburg. because of the GMO and how we've historically done these large-scale development agreements to allow for projects like the Mill District or Montage or otherwise to happen. And so I think the fraction piece is an interesting question because you have a developer who has already triggered that additional unit. Like they have to, the 20% has been triggered and therefore something is getting built, which is really what we want to see happen. The fractional piece, I think, is just part of their pro forma where they're like, okay, this Healdsburg's is 20%. So we know if we're building 12 units, then we have to build one on site and we're going to throw in a couple, extra few thousand, $10,000 towards this fee. I think it's kind of a tale of two types of developments. And so thinking about it in that way, but also we don't have that mid-sized development happening at all, unfortunately. And I don't think it's this fee that is the problem with why we're not seeing the mid-sized development. So I think just with respect to the first question, I think the for fewer units, I definitely wholeheartedly feel like that is where we could see increased housing production, hopefully, soon, if those fees were taken away, because it really is a financial decision of those, small scale developers. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Councilmember Haley?
Yeah, I disagree a little bit. I think it's always a financial decision whenever you're building housing and every dollar counts. I think we need more of that, the smaller size units. I think that's kind of the direction we're headed in terms of the ability to even do these larger projects that we've seen over the last decade or so that have generated quite a bit of affordable housing. And you combine that with what we already have in the pipeline, what we've done to exceed our RENA allocation in the last cycle and what we're on target to with this next one. And the fact that we have affordable housing revenue, obviously it'd be great if we had more, but we have Measure S that puts quite a bit into our coffers. And we've shown that we've been able to leverage those funds. I think the last council meeting was $67,000 a door for the Dry Creek Commons was $67,000. And the Scattered Sites project was like 20 grand or something. I mean, we know how to leverage those dollars. So for me, the less complicated we make it, the better. I think lining up with the 10 that the state has, and I guess this is where I wanted the clarity. I'm inclined to waive the inclusionary housing fees for 10 units and under, but this is where I just want to make sure is that like once you hit the unit number 10, then it kicks in, or is it I have a 10 unit project, no inclusionary housing fees. That's where I'm coming from.
So the 10 unit threshold would be more of a decision around the on-site requirement. So currently we're at 20%, which triggers at 5. If we were to look at it from a 10 unit standpoint, that would have it. So we would have a lower on-site inclusionary requirement with the hope that that would get more units. I think that's a little bit more of a, something that could be looked at. I think, what we really have is what we're trying to do is encourage housing development. That could be potentially a future consideration, or we could look at it more from an analysis standpoint. But I think that generally that would align closer to state law. I think where the comment was, once you're at that on-site inclusionary and you get to the fractional unit, yes, you're already committed into that world and it's part of your development pro forma too. And that kind of addresses the fractional. And so what really would stop somebody is a big hit would be the on-site, because those are largely, they have to sell below market rate. We generally put them into housing land trust to get them to be, in perpetuity, as well as to get the cost down. So it's really a financial decision, but not every project's going to face the exact same scenario. So it is a bit of whether or not it's going to produce housing. I think we definitely want to closely monitor if this is impactful.
So I think that's where I kind of fall, where these kind of smaller developments, 10 units and under, eliminate the inclusionary housing requirement, the on-site requirement, eliminate all of that. I mean, we haven't been getting those with this, so eliminate it. And if down the road we're getting a crazy amount, we can always add it back in. But to me, what we've been doing has not been producing these smaller developments that we really need, and really based on all the studies, all the homework that we did during the Measure O discussion, the larger parcels are kind of, we don't have a ton of those left. So we're looking at these, like if we could get some, 10 unit developments, I mean, that's a good thing in my mind.
So, but in response to that, are we saying that we're not getting the 10 unit developments because of the inclusionary requirements? Is that a
No,
correlate?
but I
We
don't
don't
think
know.
we don't know. So why not eliminate it and see if we actually get something?
I wholeheartedly disagree. The basis of our inclusionary housing ordinance is how we've brought large developers to negotiate with the city to create the Saggio Hills affordable site, to create the units that are behind McDonald's at the Randall Apartments. It's that inclusionary housing policy that tells developers, if you want to build luxury housing in Healdsburg, you have to produce affordable housing. At the farm stand subdivision, that the 30 lot subdivision or whatever the numbers are, in order to do that subdivision, they had to create parcels that were below market rate for sale or for rent units. The only for sale units below market rate that are getting created in Healdsburg right now are a byproduct of this development, this inclusionary development fee. We would not have any below market rate or deed restricted affordable for sale units, but for the inclusionary fee. The only affordable apartments that are getting built in Healdsburg it is separate and away from this fee structure. The for sale units that are getting created are because of this, and those will completely disappear if we don't continue to have this policy in place for below market rate units above the 4 unit threshold. So I think that yes, we do want to make sure that we have affordable housing still in Healdsburg. The city is doing a great job of creating donating land for the Burbank type projects, the affordable apartments that are in the pipeline. But it is the inclusionary ordinance on the books that signals to developers, whether it's through a development agreement or if it's just the, hey, developer, you're building 10 units. Of those 10 units, 2 must be affordable when you build those 10 units. That is the rules of how they exist now. So if someone comes to town and they build 10 units, what we're basically saying is 0 of those units would be affordable if what Councilmember Hagley is saying would move forward. That 100% of them would just be market rate units, and we would no longer be charging a fee, and we would no longer be charging an on-site development component. So it would just be 10 new $1 million homes as opposed to 8 new $1 million homes and 2 below market rate inclusionary units that would be for sale or for rent, depending on the project. But typically in this context, they're for sale. Those units are very valuable to our community. Those are the housing land trust type units that exist. Those are the, how do we get our foot in the door to homeownership and climb the homeownership ladder towards prosperity that we talk about as those for sale opportunities in town that are rare. We have, a small handful of them. They exist in the Parkland Farm subdivision that were created as part of that development agreement. They exist in Chiquita, and they're you don't even know they're there. They look exactly like the $1 million home next door, and that's the type of affordable housing you want to see. It's mixed in with the other market rate homes, and it doesn't create a stigma around affordable housing because it's a unit that exists amongst a neighborhood of affluence, whereas the other units that we're creating in town are literally like dense apartment buildings where everyone is below market rate. And so I think this type of housing type is really important, and trying to preserve it in these larger developments, when I say larger, I mean 5 or more, is critically important to the housing mix we want to see as mixed income within Healdsburg, especially in these new developments. Otherwise, all of the developments will just look like Montage, and then they'll say, hey, you can have that land over there to build for low income. And I think that's really counter to the ethos of what this community is all about and what has happened historically, where you have mixes of incomes all living within the same community.
I think that you make a good argument, and I agree with it. The inclusionary housing has always been an important component of what we've looked at here. So I would like to see us eliminate the in lieu fee for the small projects and perhaps give this more thought about the larger projects and look at the fractional fees, maybe, eliminating those or changing that. But I'm not sure if that's for now. Is that something that you feel needs to have a little more research and discussion?
I think looking at the small unit projects is a kind of a natural first step in seeing how that affects housing production in general. I think these larger issues look at more of like how do we increase supply, but what kind of supply? And if that supply will offset other types of costs or if it will bring down market costs. And I think those are all some variables that sometimes aren't very static.
Mayor, I would echo that. Obviously, we're hearing this is challenging, it's complex. We'd welcome some of these elements as an ongoing conversation, but I wouldn't. I think I'm echoing Stephen and perhaps what you were saying as well. Probably as a clean first step is moving forward with the elimination of the in lieu fee as proposed, and as there seems to be consensus, and maybe use the execution of that as a way to kind of continue the conversation about some of these variables here, because hey, it is complex. It requires a lot of conjecture about what might happen in the future. And so I'd hate for us to kind of feel a time pressure to make a bigger change right this minute. But we'll welcome that conversation.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Vice Mayor, did you have something to say?
I think I'm just in support of where this conversation has said. I value what Councilmember Kelly brought up. I think it's easy to get excited about the potential of removing fees and barriers to housing. But in some cases, maybe a lot of cases, could be some unintended consequences that would have a negative impact, not just on the amount of housing, but also the type of housing, which I think is the main point of what you said. And so it certainly deserves a look at. I'm not going to close the door on one thing or the other. I think Councilmember Hagel's point was good too, but I'm definitely not at a position now to make decisions about that kind of direction. But we certainly need to look at it. But for now, I appreciate the opportunity to take this step on the in lieu fees for small projects.
And Councilmember?
Yeah, I think we can split this up and do it in stages of do the in lieu and then take a little deeper dive into the fractionals and what size. And I guess I have a question too, is there a difficulty with us not aligning with SB 9 in our numbers?
No, they would just have to continue to follow our 20%. So if they wanted to take advantage of it, they still could. It's more about what fees are they going to pay and how many on-site units that they would have to produce.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we've got consensus generally on doing the, having you eliminate the in lieu fee for small projects, working on an ordinance for that, and then have a further discussion at a later date on the 10 or less. Is that right? and the fractional fees. Okay. Everybody go with that? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And just to kind of reiterate my point, I consider 10 units not a large development. So maybe that's where we're kind of getting lost in the translation, because all the examples you gave are fairly large developments that included, a lot that we could get out of there. I'm looking at this as like 10 units is not a massive development. And in Healdsburg, sometimes, 32 unit hotel. When you can go to other cities and, you're looking at 200 unit. So I just want to make sure that, to me, when we're talking about housing and apartment buildings, to me, 10 units is not a large development. So I just want to make that clear that that's kind of what I'm looking at. So it's not a big development. This is kind of defining what is small. So
yeah, in fact, that's even smaller than the project going in on Healdsburg Avenue, and that's the only one that's been built recently.
Those are affordable. Those are what, C, S? I forget what letter. P.
P.
Thank you. So thank you. You have the direction you need.
Yes.
Okay. So now you stay there.
couple more.
Yeah, new business, Dry Creek Commons Measure S loan.
Good afternoon. I'm also joined by Jocelyn Lynn from Burbank Housing that can answer any project-specific questions. But today really focuses on the loan for the Dry Creek Commons. And if we can jump to the next slide. Today, we're asking to adopt a resolution approving an affordable housing loan agreement in amount of $1 million of Measure S funds for the Dry Creek Commons project and authorizing the city manager to execute the documents. Next slide. Just as a way of background, this project has been a long time coming. We've been working on it for quite some time and purchased it even quite some time before, but the RDA formally purchased this site, 3.5 acres at Dry Creek. We issued an RFQ on January 15th and Burbank was selected and we entered into an exclusive negotiation agreement. We entered into our disposition and development agreement on September 5th, and then we made a commitment for funding when Burbank was applying for different programs through TCAC and other available state funding for $1 million. And then finally, we held the TEFRA hearing for the bonds that Burbank was able to secure for this project on March 17th in 2025. And today, those financing sources have come together and we are ready to issue a loan with council's approval to the project. Just a quick project description is 58 units of deed restricted affordable housing between 30 and 60% of AMI. From there, we're going to get 6 units of permanent supportive housing that can be in support of our operations with Reach for Home and the L&M Village to continue down that path of creating permanent supportive housing or supportive housing within our existing affordable housing. There'll be a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. Includes common spaces, laundry, bicycle storage that have been vetted through a public process, and Burbank has made adaptations based upon input on that over quite a few different public meetings. One interesting portion of this site is that we always joke that it's actually a wetlands project with housing on it, and it quite is. If you look at the site itself, it's a small footprint, but it also provides for a 2-to-1 on-site wetland mitigation, which was no easy task. If people are familiar with that, that's quite a bit of red tape to work through, but Burbank successfully navigated that. And then finally, it's about 104 surface parking spaces, bicycle parking as well. Next slide. Here's some site renderings that just to give an example of how this would fit into the Dry Creek corridor. As you can see, it definitely masses up towards the front, matching how Trio is as well, coming towards the sidewalk. But for some visual representation on the project, and you can see in the very bottom left picture or the bottom right picture, from the way I'm looking at it, you can see how much of that wetland area is actually preserved in that overall project. Next slide. So the overall development, affordable housing is not cheap, but one of the things that we've been very successful is bringing in different types of funding. Generally, for these types of projects, we look at 9% tax credits, which are a large funding source. While those weren't secured, we were able to use bonds. The Joe Cerna Jr. Farm Worker Housing Grant, which was $9.7 million, which reserves, I believe, 27 units that would be for farm workers or those that are working within the agrarian community. CDBG and home funds are pulled from our partners at the county who administer that through our joint powers agreement through the City and Towns Advisory Committee. And so Burbank successfully applied for those, bringing in additional funds. And then the CDBG Disaster Recovery MHP, that's a mouthful, but it is specific funds related to disaster recovery for multifamily housing. And that brought in an additional 8.7. And then finally, Section 8 Project 8 vouchers, which is quite often used to help cash flow in the project, is that's guaranteed rent income, so that can help with the financing of the project. So between the land and our loan, our total is about $3.61 million into this project. We bought the land for much less at the time, but the current valuation brought that up. So about every $1 of city investment, we're getting about $17.22 back in public sources, which is a great deal for the city. Next slide. So the loan terms would be $1 million in residual receipts loans from Measure S, the 3% simple interest over 55-year term. Annual payments will be based on 50% of surplus cash. Principal and accrued interest will do it at the end of the term. This is pretty consistent with how we give loans to affordable housing across many different projects. Next slide. In alignment with city policy, this implements the city's strategic initiative to expand affordable housing opportunities. It advances our implementation of our 6th cycle housing element, which identified Dry Creek as one of our main projects to meet our RHNA. It definitely supports our progress towards RHNA and making our 6th cycle numbers. And it's consistent with the intent of Measure S to continue to fund affordable housing projects. Next slide. So from this point forward, Burbank is anticipating a closing date of about September 15th. We'll execute and the land will be execute the loan agreement. The land will be transferred. And then following that, I just got notification the building permit is ready. And so I believe that Burbank will start as soon as the bond and the in our loan close and the escrow. Next slide. So back to the recommended action. I think that today's been a long day coming, but we have Saggio Hills in progress. We have Dry Creek in progress. And I think this demonstrates that we're executing what we said we'd do in our housing element and making the progress as we're going. I have to say that Burbank has done an amazing job of bringing in outside funding to make this possible. And our city contribution of the land bought, way back is really helping, as well as being able to list it as surplus land property to be able to get funding. And all those actions were taken by the council to lead us up to this day. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that, Stephen. Yeah, this is a real milestone, isn't it? So does council have questions? No? No? Well, so we'll open this up to public comment. Welcome again.
Hello, Omar Lopez from Generation Housing. We just want to encourage you to adopt this resolution. Like it was stated, this has been a long time coming, and we're excited to see this project move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did want to clarify that the start of construction that Burbank anticipates is October 1st.
This year?
Yes.
Yay. Yeah. Good. We like those. So do I have a Councilmember Kelly?
I'd like to move to adopt a resolution approving the affordable housing loan agreement in an amount of $1 million of Measure S funds for the Dry Creek Commons project and authorizing the city manager to execute the loan agreement and all necessary documents to facilitate disbursement of the loan.
I second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Edwards?
Yes.
Councilmember Hagley?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harrod?
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell?
Yes. Thank you both very much. We look forward to that groundbreaking. Thank you. Okay, so our last item before council reports is the Arts and Culture Commission vacancy options. Raina Allen, City Clerk.
Good evening, mayors and council members. I have the privilege of presenting the Arts and Culture Commission appointment options this evening. So the recommended action is to provide direction to staff on the options to fill the vacancy on the Arts and Culture Commission. In November of 24, the council appointed 7 community members to the Arts and Culture Commission. At that time, 17 applications were received. In late July of this year, a commissioner resigned their seat on the Arts and Culture Commission. So at this time, the City Council needs to fill the open seat. So there are 2 options to fill the vacancy. Option 1 would be to conduct the standard recruitment, open the recruitment for about a month, post it on social media, the website, and then local newspapers, collect the applications, and select a subcommittee to interview the applicants to make a recommendation to the full council. And option 2 would be to select a commissioner from the prior recruitment process. So the City Council could select an applicant from the recruitment that was conducted at the end of 24 and fill the vacancy from one of those candidates. Again, the recommended action is to provide direction to staff on the options to fill the vacancy. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Raina. Anybody have any questions? Or no? Not seeing anyone in the room, I'll open it and close public comment all at the same time. So we need to provide direction. Do we have comments on what direction we think we should be doing here?
You know, I got some feedback from the public on this, and I think that, you know, when we were talking about this originally, we were looking for a youth commissioner. And we are in a new school year, new time. There might be a new pool in that. So I would like to see if we could go with, you know, a new recruitment to give a fresh applicant pool a chance.
Great. Vice Mayor, no? Yes?
Well, just to kind of go back, what happened during the original appointment, it was Councilmember Hegley and myself on that subcommittee. And once again, a lot of really great applicants. There maybe it was one or two that I wouldn't have been comfortable appointing, but it was really a great pool. And there was one among them that was a youth applicant and was a really strong contender. And at that time, and as we explained to y'all, we opted to go with more experience with the new commission. I don't really know the status of those people who applied. It was only one youth person there, and I do want to reiterate there has been a lot of interest in having a youth representative on that commission. And I saw that when I was at the meeting a couple of weeks ago, amongst some of the commissioners there. But you know, there hasn't really been a vote or anything on that matter. That's up to us anyway. But there is a lot of interest in that, and it was true also that a report that Linus Lancaster from the high school said there's a lot of interest in that position also. So. But it's still kind of a difficult question. Really, the status on the person who applied back then is unknown. And if we were in favor of a youth representative, you know, like I said, that application was super strong in my opinion. But we don't know if she wants to do it or not. And so maybe we do want to open it up to see if there's other folks. I'm not really sure which. I don't have a strong opinion where we want to go at this point.
I have a question. I agree. I think you know, now we're kind of out of the startup mode. They're up and running, but is this something where we could just open it for a youth position, or would it have to be open to everybody? I could see like kind of tricky.
I'll take a stab.
I wanted to ask.
I'll take a stab at this as we stare at each other over here. The resolution forming the commission allows for a youth commissioner. It doesn't mandate one. I'm not sure you have a legal issue, but it gives me some pause if we were to open a recruitment process for one subset of those who are eligible. It gives me a little bit of concern. What I would say is if there is the resolution allows for a youth commissioner, we certainly understand why that might be valuable. So if the council were to give direction to open a new recruitment, I'd say, and the council or some of you individually are really interested in having a youth commissioner, we'll work with you to try to get that information out. I think, as you mentioned, Vice Mayor mentioned, Linus at the high school is already attuned to this. So I'm not even sure we have to, but we will try to get the word out, and that you absolutely can appoint a youth commissioner. But I would think that's probably the best way to do it. If you open a recruitment, is to open it to everybody. Let it be known that you're interested in looking at youth applicants, and let's see if we can get some good ones.
I appreciate that. I mean, as I was asking the question, I was like, yeah, that doesn't quite feel right. But I think, you know, this last, you know, the school literally started on Thursday for the high school. So I'm sure things are crazy. But I think the issue that we had last time was, I don't think we felt like the word really got out to the youth side. And I know as a
new Healdsburg High parent, the amount of text messages and notifications I've been getting over the last 2 weeks. There is a way to get the messaging out. I now know. So, but yeah, I would encourage staff to work with Linus Lancaster or whoever else at the city or at the high school to make sure that that messaging goes out, as well as the community. And I think ultimately, you know, when we form I'm assuming we would do another subcommittee, it is choosing from everybody, but at least we can get, you know, more interest. I don't know.
Councilmember Kelly?
So this is to fulfill the remainder of the Crystal Lopez's term from her resignation. So how long are the terms?
Her term was for 3 years, so this person would have about 2 years and a few months left, depending on when they were appointed.
Got it. Yeah, I think I agree, and I just want to suggest something in addition to. So I think that given that this is a remainder term and we've already established the resolution that established the commission, and we had kind of a robust discussion about whether or not to have a youth commissioner at the time, and we decided not to, and made all of the positions like youth can apply, but they're all open to everyone. I do think that there is value in having a youth commissioner seat that is a specific set aside seat for a member who is, you know, a youth, whatever we want to define that as, 24 and under, or 18 to 24, or 16 to 18, to be on that body. And I've seen it be successful. Like, for example, the school board has a youth school board member that sits on that body. I think it's a 1-year term. I hesitate to asking a young person to sit for 3 years for a 3-year term because life changes or you go off to college, or, you know, I think it's you know, when you're only 16 years old, 3 years is like a huge part of your life already. So I want to say that I think having a youth seat has value. I do think that we, per city manager's comments, would need to reconstitute or create a resolution that would allow for that specific seat to exist. I would suggest that we just have it be a 1-year term and that we open it up to youth. And then every year we appoint one youth to sit in that seat. Maybe it's just for the duration of the school year and doesn't include summer or something like that. And maybe that's something we can discuss down the road, depending on kind of what happens with this current recruitment. But I do think there is value in having a member that is young at the table, because I think the arts are really in the culture, arts and culture in this community, and especially as it relates to young people, is critically important. And we've seen kind of those presentations from the high school students about the art projects that they're doing in the community, and they're pretty fantastic. So I'd like to see us do both if possible, but I think for this point in time, opening the recruitment, making sure we put it out to youth, and then also having a discussion of if this is of interest, could we also just change the resolution to create a youth seat and what that could look like?
Thank you. So at this point, I think we've got consensus on opening it up to new application, and the idea of appointing a specific youth commissioner, maybe down the road, look at that. But also we could see what kind of success, if any, we have on this recruitment for a youth commissioner too, and what kind of commitment they're able to make and contribution and all of that. At least that's what I would think. It could give us some data for maybe changing the resolution later.
I assume we're going to select the subcommittee later. It's not on the agenda tonight.
Correct.
Not tonight, though. Okay, good. So, okay, so that you have the direction, right? Thank you. All right, so we move on to the last thing here, the council reports on matters of interest occurring since previous regular meeting, expense reimbursement reports. Who would like to start? Ron.
Wasn't much going on. I did attend the Sonoma County Mayor's Council Members and Association, and it was nice to get 2 bites at the Potter Valley project to really be able to get some information ahead of time and then to be able to dive into that deeply so that we could provide our residents with some good information tonight. And I think we accomplished that.
Thank you. Yes. Chris?
Thank you. Yeah, I attended that dinner. I was invited to fill in for the mayor at the WIC event at Alliance for Breastfeeding Month, and so they had a lot of the participants from that program there at that celebration. It was a lot of cute babies, and it's such a fantastic program, and it's just another indication of how important that facility is and that organization is for our community. So that was really cool, and great to learn a little bit more about that. I went to the chamber cluster meeting, which emphasized our auto dealers, and learned a lot about that really important business segment in our community. And conversation sort of opened up to sales tax revenue from sources outside of wine, food, and hospitality. And I think that's a really important thing to be looking at for the chamber, for us, and for the community in general and during uncertain times. That was really, like the last cluster meeting, it was really informative and helpful to everybody who was involved with that. So I look forward to some of those themes moving forward in the future. I also attended the HEP graduation. That's a Healdsburg, the high school equivalency program that was held at the JC for 51 happy graduates, all with really compelling stories, reaching a really important milestone. And this is really a fantastic program the city of Healdsburg has been able to partner with. And so it was really an honor to be a part of that group and that occasion, very special occasion. We had the zucchini races, not this Saturday, but the Saturday before at the farmer's market. And I had been part of a recurring group of volunteers for that and the pumpkin races and celebration that happens there. And it's always such a gas, and really had a huge participation this time around. So it was a little slow at COVID, and it sort of crawled back now, and it's really robust, and it's a lot of fun and lots of great creativity there on display. Looking forward to a pumpkin event in October. I don't have a date for that, sorry, but I'll get back to you on that one. And then sort of an aside, I joined a handful of 50 or so music fans on the sidewalk outside the Beck concert. And that was really fun to see people come together and enjoy a really special evening of music. Even they pumped some music outside of the building, and he's a huge star, and the music was amazing. He did not mail in the performance. It was a beautiful concert for everybody. So congratulations for booking that guy, but also for sharing the music with us freeloaders who didn't get tickets, who were out on the sidewalk. It was really a lot of fun to be there.
Thank you. Councilmember Haley?
Sure. I have a couple things. On the 7th, I traveled down to Santa Clara with NCPA's legislative. They hosted a legislative staff tour for staffers at the state and federal level to kind of tour various projects. So they went to Murphy's, looked at our hydro facility, and did a number of different tours in Palo Alto and Santa Clara. But Santa Clara, I went down there and we toured, we met at Intel and toured one of their data centers, which I'd never been inside a data center. And those things are loud and they can get really hot, but it really has, when you're talking about grid reliability and the demands on the future electricity needs that we have for, the country, data centers really play a big role in that and the demands related to that. So it really has an impact on the conversations we're having in Washington, D.C. as well. So it's great to have all the representatives at the state level and at the federal level on this tour. And then I also attended the mayors and council member meeting, and that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Councilmember Kelly.
Not a lot to report other than I missed the Beck concert and a couple other fun things, but was down in Southern California for the Coastal Commission last week. We had our 3-day meeting Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in Calabasas, and some very interesting policy issues happening inside and outside of Northern California. But it's very interesting to see kind of the different counties and how some of the different regions in our state and how much we have in common and how much we don't with other parts of the state. But one of the things that was on our agenda was talking about how the County Board of Supervisors and their Planning Commission will be changing and shifting away from having both the Board of Zoning Adjustments and the Planning Commission existing and moving towards a different structure where basically the Board of Zoning Adjustments, which is currently an overseeing body that Sean McCaffrey sits as our representative for both the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Adjustments, that the county is going to be making a huge shift moving forward with how they do those commission actions. And so stay tuned for that. But that's kind of one of the Sonoma County related things that came out at that commission hearing. So next up is Fort Bragg next month. Can't wait.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I was at the mayors and council members along with April and Jeff. We had a pretty much of a full house. We did miss you, but it was a good meeting. And the next one is coming up in September. So that's all I got. So we'll adjourn the meeting at 9:53.